Stories number 1. Aita for not answering the door when my ex's mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. This happened a couple of years ago, but I was talking about crazy MIL stories with a friend, and she thinks I was an AH. I have sole custody of my children. My ex and his family live about a 9-hour drive from me. One day, at around 9 a.m. there was knocking on my bedroom window. I peeked through the bottom of the blinds and just see woman's sneakers. So I peek higher and make eye contact with my ex's mom. All I can think is WTF? The apartments where I live are not gated, so anybody can drive onto the property, just not go in buildings without a key. Which means ex's mom couldn't knock on my door because she couldn't enter my building. Anyway, now that she's seen me, I change and go see why she's there. Only reason why she has my address is because a few months back she asked to mail some stuff for the kids and I dumbly gave her my address. She tells me she was in the neighborhood. I asked her why she didn't call me before arriving and she said it was a last-minute decision. I let her in, and she sees the kids for a bit. When she leaves, I tell her next time she needs to give me a heads up before arriving. And I'm not talking 10 minutes before, I need at least a 1-week notice. So, this is where I might be the AH. About 4 months later, she pulls this stunt again when I hear the tapping on my window. I know exactly who it is. I don't bother looking out the window. She starts calling me. After the 5th call, I answer. She tells me to open up because she wants to see the kids. I'm like, what? I'm not even home. Why she didn't tell me she was coming? I'm 45 minutes away visiting my dad with the kids. She demands dad's address. I refuse to give it to her. I tell her I have no idea when I will be home. Yes, complete lie. Anyway, she doesn't believe me. She thinks I'm home. Again says it was a last-minute decision. I hang up on her. I'm getting texts from ex demanding I let his mom see the kids. I tell him what I told her. I'm not home. Imagine my surprise when I hear the police banging on my door a few minutes later. I don't answer. I get a call from a random number. The police officer. He is there to perform a wellness check because ex's mom hasn't heard from me in 3 days, and she's extremely worried. Also, according to him, it is illegal not to answer the door when a police officer knocks. I tell him she is lying. I just spoke to her on the phone. She showed up unannounced. I made it clear to her not to do that, and I am out with family, and I don't need to come back just because she showed up unannounced. She is ex's mom, and I don't have to talk to her. After that phone call, I get a text from ex calling me an AH. And how hard would it have been to let his mom see the kids when she drove all the way there just to see them? I want to make it clear. I don't mind her visiting. I don't mind her being around my kids, but I can't stand her showing up unannounced and demanding to see my kids like that. It was like she was on a weird power trip. Comments. Commenter. 1 NTA. Woman weaponized the police against you? Woman no longer gets any part of your life. Next time she tries anything, just use the phrase, "You called the police on me." When she deflects, "You lied to the police." Just keep banging on some version of that. X gets the same story. She called the police on me and lied to them. She is dangerous. Edit. Wow, that blew up. Thank you so much for the award. Commenter. 2. She was on a weird power trip. Same with your ex. The whole calling the police thing reaffirmed that. Your NTA. Best to keep away from X and his insane mother. If you can, I would consider moving so she longer knows where you live. Any visitation your ex has can be in a neutral place. Commenter. 3. If she drove all this way just to see them, then she knew 9 hours before arriving last night that she would be here. So she could have dropped me a courtesy text, and I could have saved her the trip by telling her that I was not prepared to host. If she doesn't have enough respect or consideration for me to do so much as send a text, why should I have the respect or consideration for her to spend my time hosting her at my home? Next time, she can give me notice in advance like I told her. And if she doesn't, then I am going to change my terms and simply tell her that she is not allowed in my home at all. Commenter 4. NTA. The police officer told you that your ex-mom said you haven't responded in 3 days? I think you just got the perfect opportunity to report her to the police for making false report and harassing you with a wellness check. Stories. Number 2. Aita for leaving my girlfriend's place early because her son was being difficult Hey all. On Saturday night, my girlfriend's son wanted to go mountain biking on Sunday morning. If I'm being honest, I didn't want to go. I don't mountain bike and my girlfriend was not gonna mountain bike that particular day. It's nearly a 2-hour ride to get there. We would have sat in the lodge for 5 or 6 hours while he mountain biked. Then it would have been another 2-hour ride home. Her son goes to bed and set his alarm for 6:30 in the morning and I tell my girlfriend I really don't want to get up that early. She ends up going into his room, taking his phone, he is 13, and puts it in her room and set her alarm for 9:30. I still didn't want to go, but I'm like whatever, we don't leave till 9:30, and I'll suck it up so I can spend time with her. Well, her son wakes up at 6:30 anyways. I can hear them arguing back and forth. He keeps turning the light on, and she keeps shutting it off, and she's like, give me a half hour. A half hour later, she kept getting a barrage of texts from him and I could see them texting back and, about 15 minutes later, every 30 seconds he keeps knocking on the bedroom door and this goes on for like 20 minutes. Finally, I get up and I say it's too early for this shit. She gets up as well and starts finding clothes for him. He's having a complete meltdown and he's telling her to shut the fuck up. Fuck off and fuck you to her, by the way. This is normally how he speaks to his mom. Finally tell her I'm not going today. And I can tell she was pissed because I did agree to go. As I was leaving, she was getting into the shower, and her son is still having a meltdown saying, get in the fucking shower, you're a fucking retard. That was a couple days ago, and we still haven't texted since. Aita for leaving early even though I agreed to go? Comments. Commenter 1. Why are you still in this relationship? This is insane. Commenter 2. Once all the cursing started, she should have told him that mountain biking was no longer on the table of privileges for the day. Commenter 3. Hell nah, and I'd evank if this is a good relationship to be in. She's making no effort to address his disrespect. If you say something, they both gonna be mad at you. I would block that entire situation. He's already 13, it's too far gone. She saw signs of this when he was still small enough not to overpower her. She did nothing and she will continue to do nothing. Do you want to be in a relationship run by a kid? Commenter 4. Ash, if 6:30 was too early, then nobody should have gone to bed until the time was decided. It sounds like as far as the kid knew, the activity and time were agreed upon, and then when he woke up the adults had just changed plans without him knowing and wouldn't even get up for him to know what was going on, which would be a sucky situation to be in for anyone. But a teenage kid probably doesn't have the best emotional regulation to deal with it. You suck because you are the reason the change was made, after you agreed to the plan, and when there was no actual reason for the change. If you didn't want to go, you should have said so in the first place. The mom sucks because rather than waking up the kid to talk about the change when it was decided, or waking up at 6:30 herself to talk to him about it, she tried to trick him by taking his alarm away. Again, something even an adult would not appreciate. And because she'd rather try to placate her boyfriend than actually follow through with something she told her son. The kid sucks. Because no matter how upset you are, it's obviously not okay to talk to your mom or anyone the way he was doing. But this is a long-standing issue in part due to parenting choices. And if she picks you over him often, he may have been more upset that she was doing that again than he actually was about the timing change. Normally you wouldn't be an AH for removing yourself from the situation. But since you caused it, not staying to help deal with the fallout is a pretty AH move too. Stories number 3. ATA for not wanting to name our son after wife's dead brother. Obligated, this is a throwaway. I don't want this reaching friends or family. Also, I'm sorry for the length. I didn't know a good way to shorten this without leaving out anything important. I was directed here upon the advice of a friend. After this issue escalated to a huge argument approx. 3 hours ago, that resulted in myself leaving our home to go to a buddy's house. I am still here, and unsure how to go about resolving this with my wife. Myself 28M and my wife 26O have been together for 10 years, and married for 4 of those. My wife is pregnant with our first child, a boy, and she is due in early July. Now on to the issue that has arisen. My wife wants to name our son after her brother, who passed a little over a year ago. Her brother, we'll call him T, was her only sibling, and they were very close growing up. As they were only 2 years apart, however, her brother was not the most pleasant person. Her brother was a drug addict starting from age 14 to 15. He stole from everyone around him, including myself and my wife. He was abusive to every one of his partners and his child, and he served several years behind bars. T was also abusive to my wife and her parents. He had a stay-away order from our home because he broke in while we were away and stole our TV, my wife's jewelry box, and one of my hunting rifles. T passed last year in April from a drug overdose, and it affected my wife very deeply. It was her first major loss she has suffered, and she still attends therapy to help cope. When we found out we were having a boy, she immediately wanted the name to be T's name. I heavily disagreed, and I have offered many replacements, other family names like her father or grandfather's, but she will not budge. She wants our son to have the exact same name as her brother, first and middle. She has even gone as far to say that if we name him something else, she will have it changed, or only call him by T. My final straw was when my wife ordered a blanket with T's name sewn into it for our son. I blew up, and I told her I was not naming our child after a drug addict who took advantage of everyone around him. My wife blew up at me. She screamed at me to leave, threatened to call the police if I didn't. She called me a piece of shit for talking about her dead brother like he was trash. I did leave. I told her I would attempt to speak to her again about this once we had both calmed down, and I apologized for speaking about T in a negative way. I'm getting calls nonstop from her family, calling me names for speaking about T, and not wanting to honor him by naming our son after him. My family is on my side. Her family is on her side, and my friends are split on the matter. So Reddit, strangers on the internet, I need your opinion on if I am indeed a massive asshole for not wanting this name for our child. TLDR. Wife wants to name son after brother who was a drug addict and serial abuser. I do not. We cannot come to reason with one another. Huge argument ensued. Update. Well, a week after the post, I sat down with my wife, and we had a very long and difficult conversation. She broke down and admitted she was struggling more than she let on with the loss of her brother, and she told me she felt uncomfortable talking to me about it due to my feelings towards him and how he lived his life. I was devastated, to say the least. I have never felt like such a horrible partner. I was selfish. I failed to see him as anything more than his mistakes, and I failed to support my wife through his death. It was a long talk with lots of tears, and we both agreed to be more open in the future and less judgmental. We started attending therapy together less than 2 weeks after that, and we have been going ever since, once a week. It was rough at first, but it has helped tremendously in dealing with the bumps in the road of marriage. As for our son, we came to an agreement on a name after lots of long discussion, a first name we both adored and her brother's middle name, just spelled differently. A good compromise for both of us, and it was my son's own name that no one before him had carried. We were both happy. Then on July 3, 2022, my wife delivered a beautiful, healthy, aita baby girl. To say that we were shocked would be an understatement. My daughter came home the next day, and since then, I am still in awe of how we created something so perfect. We didn't figure out a name until she was a week old, but I am happy to share that Eleanor Shea is what we came up. We are still adjusting to life with an infant, but so far it has been nothing short of amazing. Thank you for your past advice, internet friends and strangers. TLDR. Wife and I made up, went to therapy, found a name that was a compromise and we loved for our son, had a surprise baby girl instead. We are overjoyed. Update. My wife is cheating on me. I'm just here to vent my frustrations and scream into the void about my current situation. I can't talk to anyone in my personal life about this. My wife is cheating on me. My wife is cheating, and she has been for the past 2 months. I just don't understand. I don't even know where to start to begin to understand. We have a beautiful home, stable careers. We're not financially struggling. No drug or alcohol abuse. We attend therapy together. Our daughter is healthy. Perfect. Our 6-year wedding anniversary is 3 months from tomorrow. We've been together 11 years. I have spent the last 2 days examining everything about us under a microscope, trying to find a crack. Where I went wrong. When did she become unhappy? When did this life, our life, become unsatisfactory for her? For her to step outside of our marriage with some random guy she met on Facebook? For her to throw our family away? I just don't understand. I found out on Monday, completely by chance. My daughter's tablet was dead, I grabbed my wife's iPad so she could watch her nighttime videos and go to sleep. Wife isn't home right now. She's on a trip and won't be back for another 4 days. I keep hearing message notifications dinging on her iPad while my daughter has it, so I took it to turn it on silent only to see a man's name I didn't recognize with a little winky face next to it. I went through everything. They've done it all. Met up, spent the night together, went on dates. They even have a romantic cruise planned for next month. The same cruise she told me was a bachelorette trip with one of her friends. All of these outings that I encouraged. She told me they were with friends. I encouraged her. I was so proud she was getting out there and becoming more social, since she expressed motherhood made her feel like a recluse. And after digging a little deeper, all of these new friends she's been out with don't even exist. All lies. They are characters she's created to continue her relationship with this man. I feel like a complete and total idiot. I never second-guessed a lie. She fed me. I gave her my 100% trust. We've been doing couples therapy for a year. We communicate, we go on dates, we get each other gifts. Our sex life was great. I never, not even for a second, would have suspected this. I don't know how to confront her with this. I don't want this. I don't want to split up our home. But I know that this isn't something therapy can fix. I know myself well enough to know I'll never be able to trust her again. Do I just let go? Let her go be with this man who clearly makes her happier than I can? My entire existence is intertwined with her. How do I even begin to untangle that and separate? I have 4 more days to sit and overthink this. I genuinely don't know why, Chinaman. Additional info. Thank you everyone for the advice. I am trying to keep up with comments, and eventually will reply to everyone. Since posting and reading the comments, I've been working on getting all the messages, pictures, videos into a folder on my personal computer. I went through our home cameras and found that she's had him at our house several times, either picking her up or them swimming amongst other things in our pool. Together. The more I find, the sicker I feel. I have a lot of phone calls to make in the next few days. And an appointment to get screened for STIs. I do want everyone to rest assured my daughter is mine. We had a DNA test done when she was an infant to scan for hereditary diseases I carry. I'm going to reach out to my parents and fill them in so they can babysit while I handle this for the next few days. Update. My wife is cheating on me. Continued. I posted here almost a month ago venting my frustrations about discovering my wife's affair, and I received a magnitude of comments and messages filled with advice and kind words. For that, I thank everyone who took the time to comment or write me, and I'm sorry for anyone who related to my situation. I'm here with somewhat of an update, but mostly more venting. My life is upside down and it feels good to get it all out somewhere. Sorry if a lot of this is rambling, and sorry for the length. After making my post, I took the advice of everyone and gathered up all evidence and contacted lawyers in my area. I found a really great one and went ahead and started on divorce papers before my wife got home. I also got tested for any STIs and told my parents' best friend about the situation. I took my daughter to my parents so I could have the alone time to mentally prepare myself to face my wife with this discovery. I rage cleaned a lot and cried a lot those last 2 days before she got back. I packed some of her stuff, but then unpacked it and cried more. I had it planned to lay out all the screenshots along with divorce papers on our dining room table and just sit and wait for her, but I didn't get the chance to do that. She was supposed to get home later in the afternoon on Sunday, but she ended up getting back around 6:30 that morning. She didn't call or text in hopes of surprising me. I was up drinking coffee, and you guessed it, crying, when she walked into the house. I didn't greet her. I just went and got the folders of evidence and divorce papers and gave them to her. I don't remember anything she said that day, but I just said I knew I wanted a divorce, and I would keep the house as it was in my name solely. It hurt a lot. I wanted to hug her, but also scream at her. Lots of tears from her. Lots of yelling at me. I didn't say anything. I told her we could discuss it at length with lawyers present once she accepted the situation and calmed down. I think someone called it gray wall in the comments of my last post. Not entirely sure, but I tried my best to do that and not show emotion, argue with her. It was really hard. Hardest thing I hope I'll ever have to do. She betrayed me, but I still felt awful making her cry. She left that day with some clothes, personal belongings, and went to her parents, and my parents and best friend came to stay with me and my daughter. I had my lawyer arrange a meeting between us to discuss custody, belongings, money, everything else that following Tuesday. Well, Monday I got a call from my clinic to come in to review results of STI tests, and as it turns out, her parting gift to me is HSV-2. I cannot describe in words how angry, sad, shattered I am. I'm still accepting it. I don't think I have yet, but I am working on it. I know it's common, very common. It's not going to kill me, but it doesn't make it suck any less. I joined a support group on Facebook. Those people are great. Going into Tuesday with that knowledge was awful. I felt so much shame bringing that up in front of not only her, but both of our lawyers. I knew if I tried to discuss it with her privately it wouldn't go well, not with the amount of anger, sadness I had in my system. She never apologized. She was a different person that day. I felt like I was looking into the eyes of a complete stranger. No emotion whatsoever. Divorce-wise, everything is cut and dry. We separated finances. The house is mine. We are just waiting the 90 days for it to finalize. There were no objections on her end but one. She wants to terminate her parental rights over our daughter. I say, wants. She is terminating rights. At least trying to. She doesn't want her anymore. Our daughter, our baby. I was fucking blindsided. I'm still blindsided. My daughter is 1, but she loves her mama. Mama was her first word. She is 1. It's been 3 weeks, and the pain I have felt, the pain for my daughter, for my family, has been indescribable. I don't know who she is anymore. I don't know what changed or when it changed, but it terrifies me. I feel like my entire life was pulled out from under me. I haven't talked to her, per lawyer's advice and my own fear of what I would say. She hasn't seen our daughter. She told me that day she didn't want to. She didn't want any pictures from our home, any memories. Just her clothes and electronics. I don't understand any of it. I don't think I ever will. We have to go to court for her petition to terminate rights, and I don't want to look at her. I just can't accept this as reality right now. Not after everything. I'm trying as hard as I possibly can to keep a positive outlook on everything and be strong for my family and my baby, but this has been so hard. I hope a year from now I can look back and say, I survived that, but right now it feels impossible to even see next week. I'm not suicidal, so don't take it as that. I'm just emotionally, mentally, physically demolished. Absolutely demolished. Update. This is a happy update. Hi there. For anyone who has messaged me and the loads of comments I have received regarding my past venting on this account, apologies first off. I genuinely kinda forgot I had it. Not much of a Reddit guy, but I've been getting into TikTok lately and saw a video about a super depressing Reddit story and remembered my own super depressing Reddit story LOL. It's been around 8-ish months since I posted here about my upside-down situation, and a lot of people messaged me in that time wanting to know how I was and what unfolded, and I really appreciate you strangers for all the kind messages. It genuinely means a lot, and I'm sorry I haven't replied or anything. My life has been such a whirlwind these past few months. It's hard to believe that was that long ago. To sum up the sad stuff, first off, my divorce was finalized without any hiccups or holdups. I'm still in the works of trying to sell our old house, but in the meantime we moved to a new state. My ex is still in the process of petitioning for termination of parental rights. I've only seen her 3 times since moving, and it has been to fly out for court. I was granted temporary full custody in the process, per her request and suggestion, and she was not mandated any visitation and has denied any offer of it. She has not seen my daughter in 7 months. She has requested not to. I don't know what else she's been up to or if she is still with her boyfriend or not. Since the divorce, it has been in best interest of my mental health to keep the contact as minimal as possible, and she has done the same. I have offered many chances for her to visit with my daughter, whether it be video call or flying out, and before we moved I asked weekly, but it was always a no. Her parents still video call with my daughter, and we're hoping they can fly out over summer and spend some time with her. They've been cut off by my ex as well. I'm not sure what changed, but I can't change it back, and I am accepting it mostly. I wish her well in all future endeavors. Now for the happy stuff that has happened. Firstly, I am a proud Arizonan now. Never saw myself moving here, but we have loved it so far. My parents packed up and came with us, and I don't think I've ever seen them so happy. My daughter is doing amazing. She will be 2 years old in July, and she is the smartest, funniest toddler I've ever met. She knows her ABCs, can count to 20 without help, loves animals and bugs especially. She thinks farts and a cow mooing are the definition of comedy. And she doesn't know, but she has been my biggest motivator to heal from this whole ordeal and be my best self. Like, I genuinely don't know how I helped make such an awesome kid. The more her personality grows, the more in awe I am of just how cool she is. I could talk for days about her, so I'll cap it here before this ends up being a Harry Potter-length post LOL. As for myself, I'm in therapy and have been throughout these 8 months, and I'm in a much better headspace. I'm working on getting back on top of my health, as I did put on about 30 stress pounds. I'll get there eventually, but I'm not sweating it too much. I have not dated or tried to. I don't think I will anytime soon. I've adjusted to being a single parent pretty okay for the most part. I credit that to my family and friends more than anything, because they have been a huge support system throughout this. There are still really hard moments that have happened, and I know there are more to come, but I will roll with it, just as I have this, and hope to come out on top. This is not the end of the world for me, even if it felt like it in the moment. The sun will rise tomorrow, birds will chirp, and all will be well. Thanks to my therapist for that. Those 2 sentences have helped me immensely. Sorry this ended up being so long. I should really pick up journaling. Maybe a blog or something LOL. But thank you again to everyone who took the time to give me advice in the hardest time of my life, and thanks again if you read this. I genuinely appreciate it. New update. It gets better. My post history sums up the utter hell I went through a while ago. Kind of just posting as a response to messages and an update. Despite everything, I am well. I haven't logged into this account in a while, as I also almost completely forgot about it. But I saw through my email notifications I had quite a few messages, so I popped in to check. Mostly people wanting updates regarding my ex and asking how I'm doing. Thank you, firstly, to all the kind strangers who sent very positive and uplifting messages. I apologize for not responding to everyone at the time. As far as my ex is concerned, it has been total silence. I stopped sending pictures / updates on my daughter a few months ago as they weren't responded to, and I wasn't mandated to. Our custody case, her petition, is still in limbo with the court system back in her state, so we are still under the original order from our divorce. I do not know what she is up to or what her personal life entails. Her parents still come for visits with my daughter and talk regularly with her, but as far as my ex goes, they are about as in the dark as I am. I wish her well. Yes, I still love Arizona. I have nice neighbors. My daughter has a lot of friends in daycare, and my parents are also doing great. I switched careers in November, took a little bit of a pay cut, but I'm home earlier and I have a lot of very friendly coworkers. Our dog is doing well, and yes, she grew out of chewing. We actually adopted a cat in March of this year, and they've become great pals, and my daughter adores him. My daughter is thriving. She is smart, funny, loving, and creative. She loves animals, swimming, all things bluey, and she has recently developed a strong appreciation for Dolly Parton, and every song she sings LOL. Yes, I'm still in therapy, and I'm doing really well. I have accepted the past for what it is, and mostly moved forward. It hasn't come easy, and I know there are going to be difficult conversations in the future, but right now things are good. I have been trying to put more effort into my physical health, and I have been testing out different hobbies that align with my schedule and give me something to do that I enjoy. I do not enjoy hiking or running. No, I'm not dating. I don't have the time or desire right now, and I am okay with that. Maybe one day, when I feel more stable and more comfortable introducing anyone into my daughter's life. But for right now, she needs stability more than I need a girlfriend. I think that about sums it up for anyone curious or checking in. Not much substance, but I appreciate my boring life these days, LOL. This is a post that is pretty much a synopsis of my journal, but it feels nice to have it out somewhere for people to see. My situation sucked, and now it's better. A lot better. I hope anyone else going through dark times can make it out on top and relatively unscathed. And if anyone is currently going through dark times, please feel free to reach out. Stories number 4. aita for not wanting to meet or get to know my birth family after they tracked me down and reached out. 29M was adopted as an infant by my parents. They already had my older brother who was 3 at the time. They adopted my sister 3 years after they adopted me. I was raised in a loving, happy home. We were all treated the same, and my brother, their bio son, was not favored or treated any different for being blood. None of us were lied to about the circumstances of our family. My parents were open about adopting my sister and me. They never tried to demonize our birth families either. They knew practically nothing about our birth families, but they still spoke of them kindly and compassionately. Maybe it's just in my nature, or maybe it's because I had such a good life, but I never wondered about my birth family. No part of me ever considered trying to find them or have a relationship. I was just happy as I am. My life is good. I have a wonderful wife, 2 great kids, amazing parents and siblings in-law and grandparents. For me, there's nothing missing. That's why it took me a while to respond 6 months ago when I was contacted by people saying they were my birth parents, and it was confirmed true, telling me their story and wanting to connect with me. They broke up for 5 years after I was born, and then they got back together and had more kids and only had an interest in me for the last 2. Before that, they never thought about me. Their kids wanted to know me. Their kids really wanted to know me. I have received more than 24 messages from their kids since my birth parents reached out. It took a while, 11 weeks or so, for me to reply and state I had a great life, but did not wish to connect with them, so please leave me be. Then I blocked the accounts and made my socials private. About 3 weeks later, I received an email telling me they did not think it was fair and that I should at least meet the kids. I didn't respond, and 2 months after the first email I got another one stating they had family medical history they would share with me only if I agreed to meet them and let them spend some time getting to know me. This was followed up by an email from their children saying I should really consider why I don't want to meet my real family and why I'm so loyal to parents who bought me. Some info given to me by my birth family around my adoption for those who might need any extra info. My birth parents were 16 when I was born. They put me up for adoption via an agency, but did not meet or choose my parents. The choice was given to the woman at the agency who set it all up for them. They didn't leave any letter or family medical history to be passed on to me and never collected a letter my parents wrote to them when they adopted me. They have zero interest in ever reading that letter. Their kids are all mostly adults and found out about me through other birth family members and not my birth parents. Their kids wanted to meet me as soon as they found out about me. They found me through some PI online, and I don't know how much contact info they have on me. They never mentioned his name, but I wish he had reached out to me first so I could have said no, because now I have no idea what ways they could realistically reach me on. They don't know I'm married or have children, it seems. So that's a positive. My family supports my decision regardless of which way I decide, but I have had some backlash from some fellow adoptees I know who say they would love what's being offered to me, and they think it's selfish for me to deny them the chance to get to know me and to deny my kids' blood relatives. So this has made me ask if I'm wrong. I don't feel like I am when I ask myself the question, but I don't know I can accept I never gave these people a chance, and it's because I don't feel I should have to. Comments. Commenter 1. NTA, you don't owe them anything. If you don't wish to have a relationship with the bio parents or siblings, it's okay. They had a choice, and now you do. It is fair. Good to hear you were brought up in a loving home. They have raised you to be a secure adult. Good luck. Commenter 2. So they don't take no for an answer. They try to guilt trip you, saying it's unfair. They want to cast shade on your parents, saying they bought you, and then they imply there may be a medical issue that they will only disclose to you if you do what they want. Wow. Who wouldn't want to get to know them? NTA, I'd never read or respond to any of them again. Reply. That's where I'm going next. Mark their emails as spam and ignore. Commenter 3. NTA. It sounds like they are a manipulative bunch. I mean, they basically try to blackmail you by insinuating there's medical info you need to know, but will only tell you if you meet with them. They're showing you who they are without you ever meeting them. This is not a family I would want to know. Commenter 4. NTA, You had no say in it if you are adopted out. Now they don't get a say in it if you want contact or not. At 16 they would not have been in a state of mind to deal with a child or understand what their decision means. But not to collect a letter says it all. If you connect, prepare to be seen as their ATM because you had it all. I would answer one email and tell them you have absolutely no interest in them and stop contacting me. Then tell them that a DNA analysis does give you a much better result for genetic diseases and that you are not interested in their little blackmail scheme. Then categorize their email address as spam. And if they try again another way, tell them that's harassment, and you will ensue that it stops. Reply: I thought so too. When they mentioned the letter, I couldn't believe they would be so forward in dismissing it. If they cared at all, they would have wanted to know the people chosen were decent people. For all their years of no interest, their change of heart could have made them wonder at least. They also would have had a more direct link to me because my parents' names were in that letter. The fact they didn't feel any regret or think of me again until 2 years ago also says so much. They didn't feel regret or wish to know me when they had their children together and raised them. They didn't even tell their kids I existed. It was their relatives who did. But now I'm supposed to come running. Stories number 5. My husband spends all his time with his friend's widow. My husband, 31, and I, 30, just lost a really good friend just over a month ago. His friend was 10 years older than us, but they were practically inseparable. Because of the age gap between hubby and his best friend, and the age gap between his kids and our kids, I never really got close to his wife. We are always friendly to each other, but so busy on our own mom paths that we never really hung out before. I had nothing against her whatsoever. We just have different circles. My husband has started drinking heavily again on nights he misses his friend. I get it. I'm not completely cold-hearted, but he says his friend was the only person who knew every single thing about him and his mental battles, as well as his drinking problem. It was something they both struggled with and were able to vent to each other about. Unfortunately, the mental illness took over our friend. My husband doesn't go drinking at the bars really, but he lets his guilt build and build in the unattached garage. I let him have his moments and blare the music. However, lately when I call to ask how he's doing, he replies with the fact he's busy texting the widow of his friend and trying to get through the grief together so he can't come in the house. Once while he was showing me something on his phone, a message came through saying, "The kids are gone if you want to stop by now." It was the widow. My heart half stopped at the text because he has cheated on me in the past. But when I read the name, I was shocked. I asked him, and he said he was going to go over and visit about her husband with her, tell her more stories of their adventures and whatnot. I know it's fresh grief, but I feel like they're trying to grasp onto whatever is left of him in each other. I don't mind him comforting her, but I don't like that he goes to her house without telling me, texts her all day, and spills his emotions to her. He calls her by the nickname his friend called her and asks if she needs help getting her kids to practice, while seeming to forget about our own kids. If I see her around town or in public, she just walks past me now. At first I thought it was because she didn't want the empathy, but now I'm wondering if it's because she knows she gets my husband more than my family, and I do now and feels guilty. I feel like in the midst of her losing her husband, I'm starting to lose mine and I feel crazy for even saying that. AIO. Or should I keep an eye on things as their stages of grief progress? Comments. Commenter 1. This is 110% an emotional affair. And he's already cheated on you? Combined with their bonding over mental illness and addiction and death? Girl, they're already trauma bonded. Look up research about exactly how strong that is. He's not just shutting down or nudging you away to sulk. He's actively running in the opposite direction of you. Stop being understanding, while he dupes you and falls in love with another woman before your eyes. Don't be blindsided. You have a lot more power in this situation than you think you do, even if it's just to remove naive sympathies, the sympathies he banks on to feel safe in acting this fuckery. Much more so if it's to assert your boundaries or walk away. You're his wife. Unless he has an ironclad prenup, his entire life is about to blow up. He doesn't think it will as long as you play the nice sweet. Understanding, fool. Document everything. Protect yourself and your children at all costs. He's playing daddy to their kids while ignoring his. This is a hill to die on. The reason she's pretending not to know You in public is not because she's got too much pride for sympathy, obviously not. Because she accepts it from your husband. She's pretending not to know you in public because she's fucking your husband and you are the outsider. Commenter. 2. Grief is no excuse for infidelity. Grief is no excuse to abandon responsibilities. Grief bonding is a real thing, and I hate to say it, but pretty sure they've become physical. To them, being intimate with each other is a way to celebrate the memory of a mutual loved one. In truth, it's the exact opposite. You need to point blank ask your husband if they've been physically intimate or engaged in any kind of behavior that under normal circumstances would be considered cheating. However he answers, follow up by pondering over what the friend must be thinking, as he's watching his best friend and wife use his death as an excuse to rationalize such inappropriate behavior. Ask your husband if he thinks you and his friend would have done everything he and the widow have done if he had passed away. Besides, no one grieves in the same way. Their emotions and what they're feeling for each other is just an illusion, and it's blinding them to how their actions are affecting those loved ones closest to them. They need to let each other go so they can both start to heal. Your husband and the widow need to find a grief counselor, but not the same one. Commenter 3. Your instincts are right on target. That message and the whole situation stinks like a week-old dead rat. Why do her kids have to be away for your husband to go over to her house? If only telling stories about their dad? Why? You know this doesn't pass the smell test. You better keep an eye open and confront him with this, that it has to stop. Because there's no room for three in a marriage. Let him work out his grief in therapy, not with the weeping widow unless you're right there, sheesh nor. ETA, last line. Commenter 4. Well, let's look at the facts. He's now drinking heavily. He has cheated on you before. And he's prioritizing spending time with another woman, which has him emotionally abandoning you and your kids. Lastly, he's using his best friend's death as an excuse to spend all his time with another woman. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it's a duck. I hate making assumptions, but the facts don't lie. He's clearly cheating. At the very least emotionally, if it isn't sexual, but I doubt that. Stories number 6. My best friend just told me she's in love with me. I am married to a man, and together 14 years. Our relationship has been on the rocks for a few years. I have been questioning my sexuality. I have always been bi, but have been discussing with my therapist, and have confided in my husband and friends I may just be a lesbian. My last therapy session, I had my husband join, and I told him I think I am a lesbian. He said that everyone has to make sacrifices, and that if I can give him a chance to be the best possible version of himself before deciding it's not him, and that I am really just a lesbian, that would be ideal, and I agreed because I feel I owe him this. Obviously, I care for him deeply and he is my family. I have not discussed any of this with my best friend. Since she is friends with us both, she knew him first. We have a strict boundary that we don't discuss my marriage like I would with my other friends. My best friend, who is a lesbian, just canceled a trip we had planned all year. She told me she felt uncomfortable, and later that night, after my husband sent her a message out of his own free will saying he thinks she's making a mistake of losing her best friend, she told me that she is in love with me. I was absolutely speechless. She asked for nothing in return. I am absolutely devastated. I adore her. I have a stable life in another state from her, and we only get to visit in person a couple of times a year. I have secretly been denying my own same feelings about her for months. The thought of losing her makes me want to vomit. She is my soulmate. I never in a million years thought this would happen. I always thought I would never have to face these feelings, because it is immoral to have them. The fact that I developed them and have such a deep connection with her at all, I was willing to live on the rest of my life as her best friend. And now that she confessed this, I feel like there's no good option. If I blow up my life, there's no way she would ever be able to be satisfied logically, because even though it has been a decade of my marriage being on its last string, she will probably always feel like she caused it. She will feel like a bad person. She will feel like I'm a bad person. On second thought, the thought of losing her seems impossible. I can't sleep. I am scrambling to find out what to say. I asked for time to process, and asked if I could reach out again, and she said yes. I am this close to telling me husband that there is no life I can imagine without her in it and jumping on a plane to see her. To be clear, we have never been intimate, flirtatious, or crossed any lines in any ways. I met her through my husband and we instantly clicked, like I have never experienced in my life. Neither of us have ever been in this situation before. In your opinion, is there any situation where we live happily ever after? Do I have to let her go and think about her for the rest of your life? Would you blow up your life and get a flight to go see her? I'm so sorry and I hope this isn't triggering. I know that lesbians have a history with bi and lesbian questioning. Women not choosing them and seeing them as just a fling. This is not that. I am gutted and devastated. My husband is being an amazing support. While I have sobbed over her for the past 12 hours, I feel like absolute trash. Update. First of all, thank you so much. I have found nothing but warmth and comfort in the lesbian subreddits, and you have all been extremely supportive and helpful. I told my friend I felt the same. I told me husband, it is over. He was upset, and now bargaining. It is extremely painful to have to continue to tell him this isn't a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Not only do I prefer women, I have feelings for my friend. Even without my sexuality in question, we haven't been happy. We have had happy moments, of course, and we love and care for each other. But I know this is not for me, and not for him. I want nothing but to be friends and amicable. I want all the best for him. I will split everything with him. He can have our babies. I want him to have the best life in the world. I just know it's not with me. As for my friend, we aren't running off together. We have therapists and lives and successful careers. She doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and that makes this process just a bit easier, albeit it is excruciating. I know in my heart I did the right thing, the right way, and that this could be the beginning of the rest of my life. Thank you again. Comments. Commenter 1. If I blow up my life, there's no way she would ever be able to be satisfied logically, because even though it has been a decade of my marriage being on its last string, she will probably always feel like she caused it. She will feel like a bad person. She will feel like I'm a bad person. You're the only one who can decide what to do, but please respect her own choices. She's her own person. She can decide what to do. Don't undermine her choices just because you think they will make her feel bad. She confessed to you. She must have thought that that's what's best in this situation. Please respect this, and don't make your decisions based on an assumption that she'll regret her choice. Reply. Thank you. You are right. She is an intelligent and emotionally mature woman. She would not have told me this for no reason. She was adamant that she has no intention to do anything about this and essentially is stepping away. My gut and my heart want to go get her. Commenter 2. This is a big decision to make, and I can't and won't tell you what to do. You should probably give yourself some time to calm down before making it as well. Not because you're making a mistake by wanting to go to her, I don't think that's a mistake, but so that you can make whatever decision you'll make with a clear head as much as possible. I can only imagine how emotional this situation must be, and take full responsibility for it. Nia, it's a big thing. You owe it to yourself and to her. But I will also echo what the other commenter said. Someone you love loves you back. This is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. Yes, it's also difficult in your situation, but it's not bad. Reply. My next therapy session is on Friday. Should I wait until then and discuss with my therapist and have a clear decision, or should I make sure first of it is even an option on her mind for me to choose her? Like ask if she would even want that? The first one, right? That is the right way? I don't want to do anything that would be disrespectful to her or the person I am married to. From the moment I met her, something in me told me, this is my person. I would have lived the rest of my days without confessing this. Commenter 3. Can't say if you should, but if you want to wait until that and feel it will help, sure. There's probably no harm in doing this. Just don't leave her hanging for too long. I can imagine she's dealing with emotions similarly intense to yours right now. Especially since you have a strict boundary of not taking about your marriage, so she doesn't know that it wasn't doing well for a long time. I can imagine she thinks right now that she's going to lose you. And yeah, I don't think you should ask her if this is an option first. She loves you, she told you so, She's already made her step. Imagine you ask her if she would potentially be willing to be with you, and then you decide against it. I don't know her, but I can say that if I were her, I would feel horrible having my hopes raised and then dashed like this. I will also say that regardless of what you decide, your husband probably deserves to be with somebody for whom he's not a second choice. Commenter 4. I will split everything with him. He can have our babies. You're taking half your furniture but leaving your kids? I'm confused. Reply. They're dogs, we have 3 of them. He is very bonded with 2 of them, and I know that as much as it would pain me that he would need the support, and they're his babies, as much as they are mine. The house and furniture and everything is mine. So what I mean is, I will give him whatever he wants fairly split monetarily. I was the breadwinner and he was my employee with minimal tasks, so I supported us both. He basically will not need to find another job or anything and would be set for a good while. So it's not like he will be scrambling to survive and will likely live in his parents' house, rent-free, so he can build a life himself. Commenter 5. I've been through this, blowing up my life, and I know how difficult that is. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations to you both. Stories number 7. Neighbors keep trespassing. Today they hired laborers to remove large retaining boulders on my property that prevent erosion. The neighbor behind our home moved in about 2 years ago. There's a large drainage ditch close to the border of our properties that is on their side. Our property line begins at the top of the drainage ditch, where there are about a dozen or more boulders that have been there for decades. Their house is part of a development who is responsible for the general maintenance of the ditch. I have caught them on our side numerous times. One occasion she was removing brush that was on our side BC. They apparently didn't like the way it looked. We spoke to her and told her she couldn't do that, and she acted as if she didn't know the boundaries, so we made it clear where the lines were and let it go. Since then, we have caught her walking on our side of the property multiple times. Not sure why on those occasions, to be honest, as we have privacy trees, and could only see that she was on our side, not specifically what she was doing. Today she hired laborers to remove and essentially steal, for what purpose is unknown, to me multiple massive boulders from my side of the property line. These boulders act as a retaining wall for the ditch and are there to prevent erosion. She was confronted and said again, she didn't realize, and that she got permission from the town. Both I strongly believe to be lies. She said she would put the boulders back. What are my options here? She clearly has no respect for the boundary lines, and speaking to her hasn't worked. Can I have her trespassed, even though it was her hired workers who technically were on my property and moved the boulders? I also don't have proof of prior incidents, as I never filed a police report, since I was hoping to give her the benefit of the doubt and keep things amicable. Should I just let her put the boulders back, let it go, and hope she respects the boundaries in the future? Should I contact her development since they are the ones who maintain the ditch and tell them? Advice on what would be my best options. Thanks all. Update. Hey, just a quick update for those interested. The morning after this post, she had her laborers return several of the boulders to where they were. Sloppily, I might add, but there seem to be others that are still missing. I have gone to the police, and they refuse to issue any sort of trespass. They told me that unless I saw her actively on my property stealing, that it was a he said, she said. They also said that because it was laborers and not her, that she isn't the one that would be blamed. They said unless it can be proven that it was in fact on my property, they couldn't say anything. Ultimately, they told me it was a civil matter, not a police matter. I also called the town's Conservation Commission, and I believe someone did go and inspect the ditch-charged wetland, although I have not heard back from them yet. I have put a call in to a surveyor to establish the boundaries more clearly, and once that is done, I will be putting signs and possibly cameras and fencing. At that point, I will also have better standing to pursue further action against her and the landscaping company. Thanks for all the advice you have given. I will not be letting this go, and will pursue it as much as I can legally. Comments. Commenter 1. File a report and tell her you are going to sue for the cost of the boulders and the cost of replacing your retaining wall. Maybe she'll be able to get them back, maybe not. But she stole your property, and depending on how big the boulders are, what they're made of, they could be worth thousands. Commenter 2. In addition to what everyone else has said, B. Sure to contact your town's Conservation Commission and inform them that unpermitted work has been done near a waterway that impacts erosion control. Reply. There's wetlands like 50 feet away too. Reply commenter 2. That is absolutely within your town's Conservation Commission jurisdiction. For most resource area types, they have a 100-dot buffer zone. If she doesn't put things back, the CC will want to know, and if you don't report this, you could be forced to correct it yourself in the future at your expense. Commenter 3. You definitely need to contact the police and the HOA if that drainage ditch is part of their responsibility. Any erosion is going to impact them. I doubt your neighbor is going to put the stone back. She probably got them hauled away with the understanding that the haulers could sell them in compensation for their work. Large stones are expensive. You need to take videos and save any videos you may have that show the property before their activity. And get some battery-operated outdoor cameras that will give you evidence for future trespassing and damages. This neighbor is going to tramp all over you if you don't fight back now. Reply. As of right now, the boulders are laying in the ditch on her property. I took photos and video. She said she would put them back. I fully believe she knew what she was doing was wrong and made shit up once she got caught. I also suspect she hired them to remove more than she had the chance to. The laborers left once she was caught, although it was also 5 p.m. Reply, commenter 3. I would let her know that she has until Monday to put your boulders back exactly where they were, or you will file a police report and report her to the HOA president. Furthermore, I would advise you to put up some type of fence or barrier that clearly marks the property line, especially since she can't seem to remember where it is. Stories number 8. A thought experiment is causing a cold war in my office. I work in an office of 20 people. The majority of us have lunch together in the conference room most days. It's not organized or mandatory, just a preference for most of us. People drift in and out, and sometimes skip if they have errands or out-of-office meetings that day. The only person who consistently does not join in is Carrie. She has a chilly personality, but she's not rude or outright unfriendly, just keeps to herself for the most part if something isn't work-related. That's fine. She attends holiday parties or any outside work event our bosses organize. However, one day a month or so ago, our IT contractor came in to update software, and Carrie did come into the conference room for lunch because the contractor was working at her desk at that time. She was quiet except for greeting everyone, which is normal, until another coworker, Steve, brought up one of his thought experiments, which is a common lunchtime bit he does, although not every day. He proposes the questions to the group at large, along the lines of the immortality pill or Mary's room concepts. I wasn't familiar with myself until they came up in these conversations. This time, his question was essentially, if you had to choose between the death of one person you've never met, or the destruction of all the works of Shakespeare or another author you prefer, what would your choice be? Everyone was being flippant for the most part, i.e., if I save the person, no kid will be forced to read Shakespeare ever again. Until Carrie chimed in and said, Shakespeare teaches us more about humanity that saving one life would, so I would save the plays. This created a very awkward silence and made several people visibly uncomfortable. Personally, I thought it was a theoretical discussion and was scrolling on my phone anyway, so didn't take it too seriously. Steve seemed to feel the same at the time and debated with her a bit, but no one else said anything related to it for the rest of lunch, and most everyone excused themselves quickly. I thought it was awkward, but just one of those things that would blow over, which it didn't. People started avoiding Carrie or being very curt with her almost immediately, like that very afternoon. It's not really the vibe in our office to email each other since we're so small, but most everyone started emailing her when normally they would just approach her or speak to her over her cubicle wall. I honestly can't tell if Carrie even minds the different treatment, but it's so pointed I have to think she's noticed. The next day at lunch, Steve expressed relief the IT update was over so Carrie would stay away. Many chimed in with their agreement. Unfortunately, every day at lunch since at least one person will bring up Carrie's response to the question and how freaked out they were by it, and that will prompt a prolonged discussion about the weirdness, and how people don't want to be around her, and how she's always been off. I don't really know what to do. It seems so silly, but people are not backing down on avoiding Carrie or talking about how strange she is, when they never seemed to feel that way before. Our bosses are both about 10 years older than most of us, a couple in their 40s. Most staff are late 20s, 30s. And I feel like if I bring this up, they'll see the whole thing as childish and gossipy, and particularly judge anyone who brings it up to them. We don't have HR. For my part, I've tried to continue to approach Carrie the same way I did before. She hasn't complained herself, so maybe I'm just making something out of nothing, and she's fine with the cost of one remark she made. Is there something I should say to my coworkers, or should I just hope they move on soon? Update 1. Thank you for answering my question. I want to update you because even though it was difficult, after reflection I did see your point about previous disinclination toward Carrie. Before the thought experiment conversation, at first I was very resistant to that idea, but I tried to be objective in thinking about it. I'm an introvert myself, even though I enjoy group lunches and friends with several of my coworkers. So I didn't really think anything of Carrie not being the most sociable person in the office, but I do think it bothered some of my coworkers on some level. When Carrie started about a year ago, several people invited her to join us at lunch or for after-work dinner or drinks, and she always declined. The invitations naturally stopped after a while, but there wasn't much commentary about it. I didn't think much about it except that Carrie's personality style is more aligned with our bosses than anyone else in the office. They are very much no fuss, lunch at their desks, do the job and leave it there, people. There is no cause or opportunity for taking work home physically here, and very little overtime. So I mean Carrie is similar to them in terms of not socializing much with coworkers during the workday or after. After I read your answer, I considered that maybe some people saw Carrie as deliberately trying to emulate that style rather than it just being her personality, like maybe people saw her as trying to stand out from the crowd and carry herself as more of a manager than a peer. I never saw it that way, but this is my best guess as far as why people were so quick to turn on her after the Shakespeare conversation. I have to admit it was hard to read such a harsh view of Steve in the comments, when I know he isn't the person he may have seemed like from the events stemming from this conversation. I was so upset in part because he was the first to publicly, vocally disparage Carrie for her answer the day after the initial conversation. He is normally a thoughtful, fair, kind person, so it was out of character. I did feel his comment was the catalyst for the discussions at lunch that followed, even if other coworkers had already started to treat Carrie differently without his input. I just want to make it clear that Steve did not encourage anyone to immediately start being cold to Carrie, or indeed at all. He never said anything like that. He is an unofficial leader in our office, so it's possible he had the bigger obligation to not comment on her answer after the conversation was over. But he isn't a bully or a devil's advocate guy. I realize I may be coming off as very defensive here, but I just feel protective of him after reading the comments. I had spoken to him about this once after his comment the day after the Shakespeare conversation, and told him he seemed okay with Carrie's response in the moment, and it seemed harsh to criticize it after the fact. He immediately said his comment about being glad the IT update was over so Carrie could entertain herself at lunch was meant as a light-hearted joke and was clearly a poor one since I took it badly, and that was on him. The day after I read your response, I thought really discussing the situation with Steve would be a good start. We usually walk from the office to our cars together, so I asked him if he thought the continued focus on Carrie's answer to the thought experiment was strange or mean. He said he did think it was weird it kept coming up, but that he hadn't really noticed anyone treating Carrie differently. He is one of only 2 people in the office besides our bosses that has an office rather than a cubicle, so he hasn't been physically present for much of the cold shouldering. I told him about the general coldness people have been treating her with, and he said that wasn't okay, and if I'd like to address it the next time it came up, he'd back me up. The next day, when someone inevitably mentioned Carrie, I said, hey, I actually think Carrie is just kind of quiet, and it might have been hard for her to join in the discussion. It was hypothetical, so she took it that way. It doesn't have to be a big deal. Forever. Steve nodded and said, Jane's me right, and I really don't want her to be uncomfortable. Let's knock it off. I wasn't happy with the implication that my being uncomfortable was a better reason to stop the behavior than because it was cruel to Carrie. But it was better than nothing. The only pushback was from another coworker who said, Carrie took that way too seriously. She could have read the room, a point that has been made ad nauseum in the month since. Steve responded that the discussion could have been serious or not. Carrie's interpretation was valid. Everyone kind of shrugged and moved on. The only other negative talk I have overheard since are a couple of uses of an extremely stupid nickname a small number of co-workers had started using for Carrie, the robot. The first time I heard it after asking the Carrie bashing to stop, I just said, "Guys, really?" And things moved on. The next time, one co-worker said, "Does the robot never check her email? I needed something from her like 2 hours ago." I responded, "If you mean Carrie, why don't you walk over and just talk to her?" I haven't heard anything personally since. My relationship with Carrie is the same as it has always been. I do and will continue to try to make a point to stop by her desk now and then to ask how her weekend was, or if she'd like something if I'm going on a coffee run. Steve makes a point of leaving his office to approach her in person if he needs something from her, which, to be fair, isn't often in his role, but he never changed his approach to her like others did. Yesterday, one of our bosses spent about an hour at Carrie's desk working on something with her, and from what I overheard, small office. I wasn't intentionally eavesdropping, it was a very friendly conversation, with the two of them chuckling often and joking a bit about a new and laborious process the new software entails. I think that, more than anything, will help things get back to normal. Update 2. I saw it's update season, so I thought I'd do so one more time. Things have gotten a lot better since that original update I sent in. The major ringleader of the Carrie is weird robotic discourse was let go in September. I didn't know why at first, but Steve confided in me that he mentioned to one of our bosses in a private chat that that person really had a toxic effect on the workplace in addition to just not being great at her job. I imagine it was a combination of those things that led to the termination. Her closest friends became much quieter, generally almost immediately, perhaps hoping to avoid being perceived the same way. For all I know, our bosses reprimanded them. I do want to say I believe the robot nickname started because that little group felt her answer to the Shakespeare question was cold, inhumane. It wasn't anything to do with her affect. Not that that makes it better, but I saw some commenters feeling worried about their own manner of speaking, interacting with people, and how that could target them for that kind of name-calling and those who had actually been targeted. I just wanted to clarify and say be yourself, even if you feel like you sound less than enthused, gregarious at work if it's safe, otherwise professional for you to do so. Horrible people will be horrible regardless, so there's no reason to police yourself that way. Carrie is actually on her honeymoon leave right now. We gave her a work shower right before her wedding, as we would for anyone else here for a wedding or baby, not a big production. Just a sheet cake and group gift from her registry. I was a bit nervous about it, to be honest, because I wanted it to be nice for her, but I knew that a few people in attendance would be the ones who'd talked about her behind her back earlier in the year, and I just thought the hypocrisy would be awkward. It wasn't, though, really. Those folks had already been acting chastised after the other co-worker's termination, so they were once again quiet and mild. Our bosses attended Carrie's wedding and they said it was lovely. I will say that in my view there was a lot of projection in the comments based on identifying with Carrie. I'm not trying to diminish anyone's personal experiences with feeling ostracized at work or in other social settings for any reason, but respectfully, none of the commenters really know anything about her or any of the rest of us. She is a nice, serious, quiet person, and no one ever deserves to be talked about like that, behind their back for just being a bit outside office culture or for any reason I can think of barring actual criminal behavior. But the idea that some commenters were fantasizing about Carrie being promoted to manager and then immediately firing the rest of us was so bizarre to me as the person who knows her and our workplace. However, I accept that I could not possibly include every piece of context that seemed relevant to me to head off that type of comment. And even if I sent in an entire novel instead of a novella, haha, and you were willing to publish it, some people would read into it what they wanted to, and there's nothing I can do about that. I lost control of the narrative when I wrote in, which I felt I was prepared for, but maybe not as much as I thought. Thank you again for your original response. I am still grateful. You urged me to consider this wasn't really about the thought experiment at all. I couldn't see beyond that one event because it loomed so large in my mind at the time. And truly, thank you to those commenters who engaged with my situation the same way and shared their stories of feeling alienated for any reason, especially if they're neurodivergent. I didn't think it was healthy for me to try to respond in real time, but I read them all. Stories number 9. Utterly terrified over my wife's home birth. Years ago, my wife and I welcomed our little boy into this world. He is incredible and amazing, and everything I could ever want in a son. However, I am scarred from his birth. We decided together to do a completely natural home birth. Completely on our own. No midwife, no doula, no hospital, nothing. We did almost a year's worth of research, took solo birthing classes, talked with others who had done the same. We thought we were totally prepared. Then the day came and things went wrong. My wife isn't the largest woman, and our son was huge, so he got stuck. Before he could get out, after many hours of laboring, we saw meconium, a baby's first bowel, movement coming out of my wife. So I made the call to transfer to hospital for the fear of what that could mean. She was too out of it, from the birthing hormones and euphoria, to make any call herself. Our son was born mostly healthy. After only 15 minutes in the birthing ward, he did in fact aspirate meconium, which was my fear and why I decided to transfer to hospital. He ended up spending 10 days in LNU on antibiotics because of it. Treatment was finished, and he's happy and healthy. Fast forward to today. Within the next couple of days, my wife will be giving birth to our second child. Also a completely natural home birth. I don't agree with this and have voiced my concerns many, many times, only to be completely shut down each time. Women have been giving birth on their own for thousands of years, and similar arguments. I understand her perspective. However, I also understand that modern medicine has drastically increased the survival rate of both mother and child. I'm utterly terrified that I could potentially lose either my wife, my new child, or both. The real kick in the pants, though, is that 1 week ago, I find out that all this time since my son's birth, my wife has held on to serious animosity towards me for making the wrong call to go to hospital. Hearing that from her completely gutted me. 6 years. I spent 6 years believing she also believed I made the right call that day, just to find out she's never thought I did. I haven't been the same since hearing that. I'm worried that knowing this will make me hesitant to make a call to transfer again if needed. That's all. I just felt a strong need to put this out there, and there's no one around me that I can say these things to edit. Thank you all for both your words of support and also of criticism. I need to hear them both. There are 2 main common themes in the comments that I've seen, so I'll address them here instead of individually. This second birth was discussed, and we reached an agreement to have a midwife this time around. However, when I ask about the midwife now, less than a week away from birth, the only response I get is that she's on call. I would never have agreed to it had I known. We'd be on our own again until something went wrong. I will absolutely be calling for a transfer again at the very first sign of any complication. Comments. Commenter 1. I'm here to say you made the right call. Your wife is putting you in an unfair and dangerous position. Trust yourself and do not hesitate to call 911. Again. I wish you well. Commenter 2. You should be scared. When every second counts, help is minutes away. You got very lucky with your son. What if this baby gets stuck and compresses his cord and is deprived of oxygen? What if this baby also aspirates meconium but becomes septic? You say your son got stuck and your wife was out of it. What does that mean? Was it shoulder dystocia? Was your wife not lucid? How was the baby eventually delivered? You don't get a clean slate after each birth. You're likely to encounter the same problems. Women have been giving birth for thousands of years. True, but women and babies have been routinely dying in childbirth for thousands of years. An average of 20% wastage is common for mammals, which means that there was a 1 in 5 chance of maternal or infant demise. These are the odds that you and your wife are choosing. Is your wife receiving prenatal care from a physician or midwife? Commenter 3. I'm sorry that your wife is so incredibly selfish. I sincerely hope for the best for you and your family. Commenter 4. You absolutely made the right call. When that stuff gets to the baby, it can kill them. I can't believe you agreed to have another baby with her under the same circumstances. You know what people are trained to handle these situations. You and your wife are not trained no matter how books you read or videos you watch. You can call again if you have to. Living with guilt if something terrible happens will be worse. Stories. Number 10. Aita for not giving up my vacation. Days for my sister's wedding prep? I-26F finally got approved for a full week off from work next month. I've been saving my vacation days forever and planned a trip with my best friend. We booked cheap flights, Airbnb, and I've been so excited because it's literally the first proper vacation I've had since graduating. Here's the issue. My sister is getting married. The same month, her actual wedding day doesn't clash with my trip, but she asked me to give up my vacation so I can help with wedding prep. She wants me there for things like running errands, folding programs, and keeping her calm. Basically, unpaid maid of honor duties even though I'm not the maid of honor. I told her I'd absolutely be there for the rehearsal dinner, the wedding, and anything important. But I don't want to cancel my whole vacation just to spend a week gluing rhinestones on table cards. She got upset and told me I was choosing a trip over family. And now my mom is guilt-tripping me, saying, "You'll understand when it's your wedding." I love my sister, but I also love not burning myself out. Plus, I already spent money on the trip and honestly, I need this break. She has a whole bridal party, plus family and friends helping out. Why is it all on me? Now I'm being painted as the selfish sister who doesn't care about the most important day of her life. I feel guilty but also annoyed, so aita for keeping my vacation instead of using it to be my sister's unpaid wedding assistant? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You go enjoy your vacation. Tell her she is being entitled. Reply. Thank you. That's exactly how I feel. I just wanted 1 week to relax without turning into a wedding. In turn, commenter 2. Go on your vacation. She's going to have you doing grunt work. That's too lowly for her bridal party. Her wedding is her big day and not yours. You don't have to prep for her wedding. That's not your job. Reply. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I don't mind helping a little, but she basically wants me as free labor. I just want 1 week to breathe without being on wedding duty. Thanks for making me feel less guilty. Commenter 3. NTA. Doesn't she have a bridal party? It doesn't sound like you're part of it. So why do you need to help? Do not give up your vacation for her wedding. Update. Wow. I didn't expect this many responses. Thank you to everyone who reminded me that my PTO is mine and not family property. Reading through the comments honestly helped me feel less guilty, so here's what happened. I talked to my sister again and told her clearly but nicely that I'll be there for the rehearsal, the wedding, and anything important that actually needs me. But I'm not canceling my vacation to fold napkins or sit around just in case she needs something. I said I already booked flights, paid for the Airbnb, and I need this break. She got pretty upset at first and said I was ruining the vibe, but I just repeated what a lot of you suggested. I'm not the maid of honor. I'm your guest. I love you, but I also earned this time off. My mom tried to guilt me again, but I reminded her she's literally the mother of the bride. Not me. The funny part? When I stood firm, my sister suddenly asked one of her bridesmaids to help more, which is what should have happened in the first place. Turns out I wasn't as essential as she made me think, so the vacation is still on. I'm going to enjoy my week in peace and show up to her wedding refreshed instead of exhausted. And if anyone brings it up again, I'll just smile and say, "Don't worry, I saved my energy for the dance floor." Thanks again, everyone. I feel way better knowing I'm not being selfish, just setting boundaries. Relevant comments. Commenter. Good for you on standing up for yourself. Reply. Thank you. Honestly, it took me a while to stop feeling guilty, but I'm glad I stood my ground. Boundaries are hard with family sometimes, but I feel so much lighter now, knowing I get to enjoy both my trip and the wedding. Stories. Number 11. AITA for not wanting my boyfriend to factor my son's survivor benefits into our new household budget. My 38F son 15M receives $1,100 a month in Social Security survivor benefits from his late father, who passed away when my son was 5. My boyfriend 40M and I have been in an on-again off-again relationship for a long time. Things have been good recently, and he's proposed. We're planning on getting a house together. I have my son, and he has 3 children, but only one of his kids would be living with us full-time. The house we are looking at is $2,500 a month. My boyfriend's proposed budget is for him to pay $950, for me to pay $950, and for us to use $600 from my son's check for the household. He suggests we can then put the remaining $500 from the check into savings. My current practice is to give my son half of his check, $550 for his personal use, and save the other half for him. I think that since he's almost 17, he should have some control over his money. My boyfriend disagrees completely. He thinks that since we are going to be a family, all the money should be pooled together for shared expenses. He thinks I'm wrong and selfish for not wanting to include the survivor benefits in the main budget. We've been going back and forth on this, and I'm feeling incredibly uncomfortable with his expectation. I feel like the benefits are my son's and should not be used to reduce the adult's portion of the bills. It feels like he's trying to make me subsidize the household using money that was meant for my son's care and future, not to pay his own share of the bills. Am I wrong here? Is it selfish to keep my son's check separate and manage it for his benefit alone? Or is my boyfriend's financial expectation a red flag for our future together? Comments. Commenter 1. So he wants to pay $950 and wants you to pay $1,500. Is his child going to kick in $550 a month also? Is your child going to be on the deed for his contributions to the mortgage? NTA. If you do this, he'll find a way to get the other $500. Some way. Commenter 2. He has 3 kids. He for sure is paying child support begrudgingly, to be sure, and thinks it's his right to recoup that money since Op's son lives there. Frankly, OP, this is a huge red flag and says a lot about this guy's character. Commenter 3. 17-year-olds shouldn't be paying rent. Sounds like dude is trying to cash in on your son's benefits. Commenter 4. YTA if you stay with this guy. No one is entitled to those survivors' benefits except you. Son, how much of her savings is the BF's kid going to contribute? Nothing, right? BF sees a way to pay part of his rent using your son's money. Oh hell, no. You need to dump this jackass now. Reply. Right, and I'm totally willing to cut the relationship off about this. And after reading all of the comments, I'm probably just gonna go ahead and end it, even if he backs on his statements after seeing this. Update. Broke up with him. He threatened my family. Found out he's not paying child support. Following my original post, I ended the relationship with my ex over the weekend. The breakup escalated into a heated argument, with him repeatedly calling and threatening to go to my mother's and grandmother's homes to cause a scene. I had to call his mother to calm him down. This was the final straw for me. In the argument, I also discovered he is not paying child support for his minor child. Combined with his abusive and manipulative behavior, our engagement and plans to buy a house are off. For those who commented about the $500, my son is a very responsible young man whose college is already paid for. He has a car and a part-time job, and saves a significant portion of his spending money. The issue was never about the amount, but about my ex's manipulation regarding our finances to gain control. I am now focused on my and my family's safety. I have blocked all contact and am documenting all threats in case legal action is needed. Thank you for your support. I am choosing my well-being and finally feel a sense of relief and strength. Comments. Commenter 1. You dodged a bullet. I hope he leaves you alone now. Good for you. Commenter 2. Congrats on separating yourself from that leech. All he could see was free money. Thankful the deity you worship that his mask slipped before you shared any contracts. Commenter 3. Well, thank God this loser showed his red flags before you guys moved in, 'cause there's enough to start a parade. This very likely isn't the end, so please be careful. Up. Commenter 4. Don't hesitate to call law enforcement. Get cameras if you can. Tell your son to be careful and block him and any of his family. He may try to manipulate your son. Stories. Number 12. My 19F boyfriend 20. M's eyes scare the crap out of me. I'm not sure what to do from here. I mention this because it's relevant. but he has never ever been abusive or manipulative either verbally, physically, or emotionally. Never ever a hint of any of that nonsense. We're both very level-headed people, so no crazy fights with screaming or anything like that, as we view that as disrespectful. There are some disagreements and stresses we have as we're long distance and pursuing different paths in life at the moment, but we have a very healthy relationship. Now here's the main issue, and it's kind of insane sounding, but IDK. A couple of months ago we were having a civil disagreement about something, and he was glancing at me from the corner of his eye and speaking to me, and the look in his eyes genuinely scared the shit out of me. And it's not about the eye color or anything like that. It's the look. You know how you hear about the soulless eyes that serial killers have? Like, no joke, that was 100% there. And I haven't ever gotten that something is wrong. You need to run feeling before with anyone else's. It obviously wasn't anything intentional on his part, and he was speaking very calmly, but I immediately stopped disagreeing and just accepted whatever he was saying because I was so unnerved. I didn't mention anything to him and just ignored it. But the next time we disagreed about something, the look was back, and again I got so genuinely frightened I just agreed with whatever he was saying. This doesn't happen every time we disagree or argue, but it happens enough to make me question whether I'm safe with him. I know a lot of people say this on this app, but he's actually an amazing partner to me, and I'm so very happy with him. I'm just looking for advice on what to do next and how seriously I should consider this feeling. Top comments. Commenter 1. That is your primitive brain recognizing a threat. It can be wrong, but you definitely should not just dismiss it. Commenter 2. Listen to your gut. When I was teaching, I got that feeling about a new student. He hadn't done anything to me, wasn't even in my class. But he looked at me once in the hallway and he had dead eyes. Like his humanity or soul wasn't there. Empty. I was so freaked out. Chills down my spine, but told myself I was overreacting. Other teachers loved this kid, so I chalked it up to me being tired or something. No, this fucker lit a girl on fire a week later. Poured something on her and lit her on fire. She didn't know him. He said he saw her in class and decided he wanted to watch her burn. Commenter 3. I took a self-defense class once, taught by a police officer. He said, if a guy ever gives you a look like this, and demonstrated, he is dangerous, and you need to stay away from him. I can't describe the expression he had, but he's a trained cop, and believed that certain expressions showed a man is dangerous. So trust your instincts. Many people just get a subconscious feeling about someone else, and just feel that person is dangerous without knowing why. It's their subconscious warning them based on subtle clues. Their conscious mind is not aware of. You are in tune enough with your subconscious that you actually know why he frightens you. Listen to your subconscious. If you are right, you might save your own life. If you are wrong, well, there are plenty of other guys out there who won't terrify you during arguments, so win-win. I wouldn't risk staying with him personally. His look would be a deal breaker. Commenter 4. It obviously wasn't anything intentional on his part, and he was speaking very calmly, but I immediately stopped disagreeing and just accepted whatever he was saying because I was so unnerved. I didn't mention anything to him and just ignored it. But the next time we disagreed about something, the look was back, and again I got so genuinely frightened I just agreed with whatever he was saying. He knows what he's doing. He noticed you just accepted whatever he said, so he did it again in the next argument. If victims regret anything, they regret not listening to their gut. Update. For context, I made a post in the beginning of the year asking for advice because my boyfriend would get this weird hollow look in his eyes whenever we would argue. If you're curious, look up false killer whale stares, and that's the best comparison I can make. Regardless, the post got a lot more attention than I was expecting. A fairly popular YouTuber even reacted to it. That was wild. I was super overwhelmed with all the comments and DMs telling me different things, so I chose to just forget I ever made the post in the first place and just move on. After all, my boyfriend and I were in a totally super healthy relationship, right? Right? It's so funny looking back at my original post because I insisted so hard that we had a healthy relationship, when really something was always off in hindsight. But since there was no textbook abuse, I just ignored it in the beginning. But after I made that post, I started being more critical of the way he treated me and noticing things that I hadn't before. Now, I'm not sure if that new awareness is what caused more arguments to start happening, or if it was because we stopped being long distance and started to live together. But we started fighting daily. Turns out he was pretty controlling from the beginning, discreetly making me feel bad about hanging out with friends' family instead of him, insisting I not go out for safety reasons. After a while, this turned into him getting angry if I gave literally anyone else attention, even my brothers. He would get mad if I didn't approve plans either with friends or family with him ahead of time, but I wouldn't have to approve his plans. Always checking my phone, but he'd get mad and snatch his phone if I ever looked through his. You get the picture. All the while, he was free to have his own social life and do whatever he wanted. And if I ever complained about any of it, he'd call me dramatic. There were so many other rules that I had to live by or else I'd get ghosted. I was a pretty calm person before getting into this relationship, but I would often find myself exploding out of frustration of being isolated, not heard, and humiliated. For example, once I was crying because we were arguing for so long, and I just wanted to go to sleep but he wouldn't let me, and he started laughing, imitating my crying face. I genuinely exploded and started yelling, and he didn't apologize, but rather said that he was just trying to lighten the mood. I don't know why I believed it, but I felt so bad for yelling that I spent the next 2 days pacifying him so he could forgive me. You might be asking, OP, he was an immature control freak. Why didn't you dump? Good question. 1. For the longest time, I genuinely felt like the bad guy in our arguments because he would never yell, but I would. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. There were definitely mistakes I made, and I should have handled myself better. But in our arguments, they would last hours because he would drag them on by connecting every mistake to something bigger if I let my phone die while on call with him. That meant I didn't love, respect, care about him. I would get overwhelmed and ask for a break, or to go to sleep, and he would refuse and continue on, and drop in hurtful comments and jokes, until finally I would snap. And the second I snapped and yelled, I became the villain in my mind, and I'd feel terrible. But there were many moments I wanted to leave, but I felt like I couldn't leave because of the mental games he'd play. He had this thing where he'd love to punish me and give me consequences for my bad behavior. These consequences could be 3 days without speaking. It could be me having to cancel a hangout I was looking forward to, etc. But after any consequence, he would follow it up with a stubborn showering of what felt like genuine affection, love, and comfort. I would be angry and push him away, and he'd persist until I wasn't angry anymore. The way he'd act after I'd been isolated made me feel like nobody has ever loved or will love me like that, he admitted to me once that he'd do similar things to his dog when he was a kid. He'd beat, pinch his pets growing up just so that when they would cry or yelp, he could hug, kiss them. Before we started dating, he told me he liked to comfort people. I didn't think that meant he would take it upon himself to provide both the suffering and then the subsequent comfort. Is that not insane? I can't make this shit up. The dude was a nut. And what's even more mind-boggling is that everyone thinks he's the sweetest, most respectful guy out there. Hell, I was good friends with him before we dated, and I thought he was the best thing since sliced bread. Whenever I finally had the balls to break up with him, our mutual friends were shocked to find out that I ended it because he's just the nicest guy, and OP, he was husband material. Ugh, sorry for the rambling. Even though we broke up 2 months ago now, it's honestly still pretty confusing to get my mind around. Anyway, we're done now, and I'm never planning on speaking to him again. I definitely wasted a lot of time with him, but oh well. Better than wasting a lifetime, I guess. Moral of the story, listen to your gut, or at least some type of common sense. TLDR. My boyfriend's stare creeped me out. I ignored my gut. He turned out to be nuts. We were in a toxic relationship. I finally broke up with him. Yay! Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Wow, very textbook cycle of abuse stuff. I'm so sorry you experienced this. The loving stuff he did was what's called love bombing, and is a tactic abusers use to keep their victims dependent on them. The cycle is tension, incident, reconciliation, calm, and that just repeats over and over. You'd have the tension build-up of trying to follow his rules but still want to live your life. The incident of a blow-up when things got to too much of a head. The reconciliation where he would love bomb you back to not being mad at him, and the calm period before he would start to ramp up things to get back to the tension stage. Very proud of you for leaving this guy. It can be really hard to leave an abuser and often takes people several tries, where they end up going back before ever getting out for good. ETA. The needling until you blow up. And then he makes it look like you're the crazy one is a super common abuse tactic too. Basically, they'll poke and prod and say increasingly horrible and enraging things. But since they're sociopathic, they don't feel things the same way. So they stay calm for all of it. Finally, the victim will lash out, and then suddenly it's all about how irrational and insane and emotional you are. It's how they manage to keep public opinion on their side, too. Now he gets to say you're the ex who was always screaming when he stayed calm. If things had ever gotten to the point of a police call, you'd look like the unstable one and him just the calm, perplexed, innocent boyfriend. Reply, thank you so much. This was very validating. Commenter 2. I've read that stare comes up in narcissists. If you haven't already, read up on narcissistic abuse. He sounds like a covert narcissist. Everyone loves them, but they are abusive and controlling. Behind the mask of generosity and performative kindness. Rather than beating yourself up about spending so long with this POS, consider this. You have experienced and learned something profoundly useful that will serve you well for the rest of your life. You are young, and from now on, you will always be alert to this horrible kind of control and help yourself and others avoid it. I have only just experienced controlling narcissistic abuse at the ripe old age of 40 from an in-law, and now I am highly tuned into that behavior in others. I wouldn't say I see it all the time, but when I do, I really do. In colleagues, the partners of friends, people from my past. It's such a gift to be able to see it clearly. Reply, thank you. This has actually helped shift my perspective a little bit. Sorry to hear about your recent experience with a narcissist commenter. 3. I'm so glad you're safe. Guy sounds like a nutter. The way he abused his pets and then you the same way is sick. I'm intrigued by this idea of recognizing the stare and how this might be an evolutionary trait of women given how long men have been brutalizing them. Quite sad and disturbing if true, yet something to ponder. Anyway, this random internet stranger is proud of you. Commenter 4. He wasn't just nuts. He was straight up abusive. I'm proud of you for getting out. That's really hard. I hope you have friends you can be honest about it with and that they're being supportive. Now, remember that healing isn't linear, but it will get easier. You are awesome and you deserve so much better. Reply, thank you for the kind words. I have great, well-meaning friends, but I am honestly trying to put as much distance from myself and that situation as possible. As terrible as it was at times, I really did care so much about him, and he was my first love. Talking about it online is hard enough, but hopefully one day I can share my experience with people in my life. Commenter 5. Good on you. That creepy stare definitely was your gut picking up on something your brain hadn't caught up to yet. It's called thin slicing. Our subconscious reads subtle cues in people like body language, tone, or even a stare, and flags danger before we can explain why. Turns out your instincts were dead on. The stare matched the controlling, manipulative behavior. Be glad you dodged that whale before it dragged you under. Reply, I'm so glad. This whole experience has definitely made me start thinking twice about gut feelings and our subconscious. Although, in my case, I'm not sure how much of it was a supernatural gut feeling like something is off and IDKY or just common sense pattern. Recognition that the average person would be able to identify. Stories. Number 13. My marriage is built on a prank, so not technically married but getting married in a few weeks. I F24 and my fiancé M24 have been together almost 7 years now, but we have known each other for longer since we went to school together. Anyway, it was Spirit Week before Christmas break in our senior year of high school and the student government had done a candy cane gram fundraiser. I was in homeroom when I got the note asking me out on a date signed by what I thought was my now fiancé. To be fair, I was a bit too excited at the time and didn't acknowledge that there were multiple handwritings on the note. He was almost always late getting into school, so I found him on his way in, showed him the note and excitedly said, "You want to go on a date?" To which he gave me the most confused look, in part because he had woken up maybe a half hour ago was a full class period late, and then promptly bombarded by a girl he only somewhat knew and said, "What?" I then showed him the note again and said, "You asked me out." He then told me he didn't send me that note, but me being 17 at the time and not wanting to accept someone was making a joke at my expense, said, "Well, do you want to go out?" He said, sure. And over the Christmas break, we had our first date. When I was waiting for him to pick me up for the date, my sister did a tarot card reading for me to kill time, and so she could practice. The whole reading was about how I was going to go on this great love journey. I was definitely not ready to hear that an hour before my first date with the first and only boy I have ever dated, but there I was sitting in his car, trying not to visibly panic over cosmic fate. Obviously, the date went well and we have had many after. As our wedding approaches, I keep reflecting back to where we started standing awkwardly at his locker to now sharing our awkwardness for the rest of our lives. To the people who sent the note, you may have done so as a joke to get a laugh at me, but I'm getting married and you're still single, so who really won here? Info. I thought I'd add this since I didn't make it super clear in the post and I saw some questions. For context, I'm a little on the autism spectrum, so it can be easy for me to miss social cues, not understand tone and not get jokes. The school I went to wasn't that big, so it didn't take me that long to figure out who sent it. The people who sent it had put me in situations where I didn't really understand that I was the joke and really embarrassed me in the process. When I got the note on the candy can gram asking me out, I was honestly too excited to even really check it because my fiancé was and still is a dream come true, so I really wanted nothing more at the time than to believe he actually liked me. For the people asking how I know the people that sent the note are still single, they're very active in public on social media, so it wasn't hard to find out. I also still talk with some of my old classmates who have filled me in. Just to be clear, I don't really care that this is how we started. I more think it's ironic and now I can laugh about it. He is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and I'm forever grateful to have him in my life. I've really loved reading all the funny stories in the comment about how people have gotten together. Thank you guys for reading and engaging. It really means a lot. Comments. Commenter 1 and none for Gretchen Weiners. Bye. Commenter 2. Or maybe it was a helpful nudge from a friend that knew one or both of you liked the other but wouldn't make the first move, lol. But that might be my tiny bit of optimism. Talking. Commenter 3. Yes. Joke's on them. I love this. Props to you for having the courage to take a chance and make something good of it. I'm so happy it worked out for you. Congratulations. Commenter 4. I'm failing to see the prank. He might not have written the note, but he still went out with you, so he wanted to. Have you ever asked him if he talked about you with some friends? Because he might have had some dang good wingman men that set the two of you up for a date. And OP, please. If you really think it was in order to humiliate you, reflect on that. Why? Stories number 14. Aita, for slapping my sister-in-law in front of her whole family. F. Have been with my husband for over 10 years. My husband has a fairly large, close-knit family, and they have get-together pretty often. Aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, grandparents, the works. He has 3 younger sisters. The one this story is about is the middle of the 3, and she's 4 years younger than us. We'll call her Mary, fake name. I, on the other hand, have a smaller family including 2 sisters, and we really did not get along well growing up. I won't go into it, but in short, my mom was crazy manipulative and we were all pitted against each other, which resulted in us constantly being at each other's throats. So, on to Mary. Mary is generally a nice girl, but at times she can be too much. She has a tendency to take things that don't belong to her without asking. That's my nice way of saying she is a straight-up thief. She will eat every piece of cookie dough out of the ice cream and lie to your face about it. TMI. Sorry, she will literally leave menstrual blood on the toilet and floor and deny it was her. I once saw her take, I shit you not, 7 out of 10 pieces of garlic bread before anyone else could have any, and without leaving enough for everyone. Again, she can be very nice at times, but she is also so very selfish and dramatic. So here's what happened. My husband's aunt was hosting the get-together. Everybody was there. Everything was going well. There was a big group of us hanging in the living room chatting, including his grandmother, who took her matriarch role quite seriously. Mary approached me and my husband and his mom, and while we were talking to his mom, She suddenly decided that she was going to pretend to punch me in the face, over and over and over. I kept talking, but gave her a look, signaling that she should stop. She did not stop. After another minute of letting her act out whatever impulse she was having, I tell her clearly to knock it off. Again, she doesn't. Instead, she gets closer and grazes my nose with her fist. On pure instinct, literally before I could even register what I was doing, I full-on bitch slapped her. The room collectively gasped, and then everyone was completely silent and just stared at me. Mary just held her face and looked surprised, and then I blurted, "Well, I told her to stop. Now everyone is torn. Some people think I was wrong to slap her, and some people think I warned her and she deserved it. I'm starting to feel bad because truly, I did not mean to do it. I think I flashed back to all the fights I had with my sisters growing up, and my hand literally just flew up and hit her. Also, I broke my nose when I was a kid, and even the slightest hit to my nose causes the bump on my bridge to tear open and bleed. Just to say that I am instinctively very protective of my nose. So, am I the asshole for slapping my sister-in-law? Edit. I am seeing some comments asking why my husband didn't step in. When I said his family is close-knit, that really doesn't include him. I meant the whole rest of his family. We go to family functions mostly to eat and to watch drama unfold and hang with a couple cousins, but he is not close with his sisters as he was the only boy, and the oldest of the bunch. He is really wonderful. He is fully supporting what I did and correcting anyone who is talking shit. But he didn't step in the moment because I wouldn't have wanted him to. I do have some boundary issues as a result of issues within my own family, but it's something I've been working on, and although this situation sucks and was unexpected, I do feel proud of handling it myself. Though his mom or another family member 100,000% should have stepped in. I shouldn't have had to say or do anything. My husband shouldn't have had to say anything. Literally, her mom was standing right there 2 feet from me. Comments. Commenter 1. Honestly, very funny. I just imagine the most brutal backhand. But yeah, NTA. It was a reflex built upon irritation. You did communicate to her, clearly, to knock it off. If you had only given her the look, then slapped her, then it's harder to make a case for you. But anyone that comes up play punching, after being told not to, is literally asking for it. Especially if she touches you. That's a wind-up. The consequence was equivalent. Even without the trauma response, your sister still sucks. All of the other stuff isn't really relevant to what happened. She just sucks. And it seems like you wanted us to know she sucks. Doesn't really matter if she is nice sometimes. Anyone can pretend to be nice. Socially, we are pressured to do it. She's just bad at it. Commenter 2. Info. YTF did no one stop her when she was clearly harassing and annoying you? Sounds like their unwillingness to stop Mary from being a jerk. Even if Mary didn't realize she was being one, played a large part in how things turned out. Reply. I wish I had a good answer. The whole time I was just waiting for literally anyone else to step in. I think everyone is just used to her antics at this point. Commenter 3. NTA. You warned her multiple times and she literally grazed your face after ignoring you. Slapping her was an instinctive reaction to repeated boundary violations, not a premeditated attack. It sucks that it happened in front of everyone, but her behavior left you little choice. Sometimes people only learn when they get a hard stop. Commenter 4. This is what happens when you get up in someone's face. It was a natural reaction after relentless harassment and ignorance to your request she stop. Her fam are doing her exactly zero favors by allowing her to continue this bullshit. She's lucky because if she does this out in the real world, it wouldn't have been a slap, and it likely wouldn't have been once. Stories number 15. ATA for wanting to live in a concrete box instead of paying for my roommate's decorations. I 18F live in a rent-by-bedroom apartment with 2 other people, 33F and 23F, who both moved in at the end of August. I've been here since late June, and my previous roommates who had lived here for a year took all the decoration and extra furniture with them when they moved out. Personally, I do not care about decoration at all. My friends make fun of me and say every room I've lived in looks like a concrete box or jail cell, but I hardly spend time in my room and find no joy in decoration. Recently, My roommates brought up buying decorations together because, to be fair, the common area is completely empty except basic kitchen stuff and one couch. I don't mind and told them as long as they followed the lease's rules on alteration. I don't care what they do to the common area. They insisted that we should all go get decorations together, and because I also use the common area, I should chip in. This I still refused because I genuinely have no use for any sprucing up. I also said that I didn't want to spend extra money on decorating. Working 20 hours a week, I can pay off my own rent and utilities, and have some fun money left over. My parents are gracious enough to pay for my tuition left after scholarships, food, and any other expenses. Somehow they came to the conclusion that because I recently bought a bunch clothes from the mall, and because my parents still support me, I should have plenty of money to spend. For context, they are both independent adults and pay for everything themselves. Well, I told them no again, and that they can do whatever they want. But I'm not going to contribute. It's been a week or two and I don't see any decor in the living room. But the other day, one of my roommates, 33F, invited some guy over. He made a comment about how sparse the living room was, and my roommate said it was because, specifically, I didn't want to decorate. She said it jokingly, but it honestly read as passive-aggressive. Considering the context, I'm not going to be convinced, but am I the asshole for not contributing to a shared space? My best friend did say my room and the general apartment was pretty sad-looking, but I'd boot up The Sims if I wanted to decorate. Comments. Commenter 1. NTA, they want you to pay for something for them and are sore because you won't. When they are being passive-aggressive, call it out and point out their failing logic, e.g. I'm not stopping you. I hope you don't get overpowered by your housemates. They are both older than you. Commenter 2. NTA. What happens when one of move out? Argue how much of 1 to 3 of the depreciated value of a throw pillow you are owed? Commenter 3. It's not appropriate for a 32-year-old to be leaning on an 18-year-old for decorating money. Same for the 23-year-old, but less so. If they want a nice space beyond functional, they pay for it. Commenter 4. NTA. I love decorating. I have lived with roommates who also cared immensely, and those who didn't. I have split the expenses of common spaces down the middle, paid for most everything myself, and lived in a space where my roommates paid for most all of the common decor, furniture. There is no right or wrong way to handle this. Exactly. If it's not important to you, then your roommates can cough up the cash and they will own the things they buy. They are old enough to understand this. Asking you about it is one thing. Walking back their plans after you decline to chip in and pinning their decision on you is very weird. Stories number 18. Wibtai. For keeping my pet after my partner gave me an ultimatum. To choose between them and the pet? Hey everyone, I'm really torn and could use some outside perspective. I'm 28F and have been with my partner 30M for about 2 years. I have a dog named Charlie who's been with me for 5 years. He's more than just a pet to me. He's like family and I rescued him when he was a puppy. Lately, my partner has been saying that Charlie is taking over my life and that I spend more time and energy on the dog than on our relationship. A few times he's asked me to think about giving Charlie up, and just last week he gave me an ultimatum. Me or the dog? I told him I can't just decide that on the spot. I don't want to choose between him and Charlie. Charlie is my emotional support and my closest companion. When I tried to explain this, he said if I don't pick him, he's going to walk away. I get that maybe he feels neglected or jealous, but I think it's unfair to ask me to give up something so important to me. I've even tried to get him involved in taking care of Charlie. He's taken him for walks a few times, and I ask him to help feed or train him, but apparently, it's never enough. Our relationship is mostly good and we communicate well about everything else, but this ultimatum has been really hard. I've said I want to find a compromise or maybe go to counseling, but he's not interested. So, would I be the asshole if I keep my dog and accept that my partner might leave? Or is it selfish to choose Charlie over him? Comments. Commenter 1. NTA. Your dog was there before your BF. Reply. Exactly. Charlie was with me long before my boyfriend came into the picture. It feels wrong to just erase that relationship, like it doesn't matter. I'm really hoping my partner can understand that love for a pet isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Thanks for saying that. Commenter 2. Keep the dog, get rid of the boyfriend. He is jealous of the dog. Doesn't want to do counseling. Reply. Yeah, that's how I'm starting to feel too. It's really frustrating that he won't even try counseling or work on this with me. I don't think jealousy should come with ultimatums, especially over something so important to me. Thanks for the advice. It helps to hear it from someone outside the situation. Commenter 3. Please get rid of the man, not the dog. Charlie did nothing wrong and he won't understand why you rehome him. In my opinion, anyone who is jealous of your pet is probably carrying around a bunch of red flags they are just waiting to wave. Please keep a close eye on Charlie, especially after you tell your partner it's over. If he's the vindictive type, he may hurt your dog. I'd suggest not leaving them alone together just in case. Commenter 4. Choose the dog every time. Also, get any partner away from your pet that makes these ultimatums and disgusting requests, because these sick people often start poisoning or injuring the pets. CSI and legal experience stories. Number 17. Aita for refusing to apologize to my SEL who ruined my baby shower she hosted. My MIL wants my husband and me to apologize to my BIL and SIL honestly. Satan-in-law is more accurate so the holidays will be normal. I don't feel like I'm the one who should apologize, but I'd like outside opinions. Some background. My husband and I have been married 10 years. We never had a big wedding or reception. We were traveling for work at the time and just eloped in Paris. After years of trying, we're finally expecting our first child. My husband has one brother who's been married for 15+ years. They chose not to have kids. We told Bill and Sil about the pregnancy before our FB announcement. SIL seemed excited and offered to host the baby shower at her home. I was hesitant because she has a very strong personality, but I agreed to keep the peace. Fast forward to me being 6 months pregnant. No one has mentioned the shower. I reach out. Sil says, yeah, I guess we should do invites. I send her the guest list and details. She never orders them, so I end up ordering and sending my own shower invites while pregnant. For the shower she's hosting. Then, Sil says she wants a co-host to share costs. No problem. A close friend, Dana, who already wanted to host me a shower, agrees to co-host. I also bring in my best friend Rebecca, who does event planning to help. The three of us plus my husband make an Excel sheet of tasks and email it to everyone, including SIL, so everyone knows who's doing what. At this point, I double-check. She is still good with having it at her home, and she states she is. Communication turns into a nightmare, because Sil refuses group FB messages and Dana's phone can't handle big group texts. Dana and Rebecca both reach out to SIL individually offering to help. SIL's only input is, I'll serve nuts and crackers, and we have to be out by 4 p.m., even though she had previously said we could stay as long as needed. Weekend of the shower, 2 of the 3 hosts have a game plan and food is purchased. The night before, Rebecca messages SIL offering help and gets, you can come clean my house and cook me dinner. They had never even met before, and Rebecca had just driven 5 hours to be there. Day of, we're told no parking in the yard or street, only in the driveway. Okay, no problem. We can't even set up until 30 minutes before, because SIL had plans. When we arrive, she and an uninvited friend are putting up no parking signs and dancing around. Guests start arriving while we're still scrambling to set up. During the shower, Sil stomps around, slams doors, plays on her phone, makes snide comments to her friend, disappears to the basement to blast metal music so loud the floor vibrates, and doesn't speak to any guests. The one time I try to talk to her, she rolls her eyes and says, we'll discuss this later. I'm pregnant, stressed, and in tears. Bill later says SIL is mad she wasn't included in planning even though she got the Excel sheet, texts and calls from Dana and Rebecca. At 3:30, I'm still opening gifts. SIL starts texting my husband threatening to have everyone arrested and towed. If we're not out by 4 p.m., husband pushes back, but we still rush to finish and clean. Mill asks for the vacuum to help. CL says it's changing and can't be used. We obviously couldn't get the place perfect. FIL even asks if he can stay to lock up while we finish. CL says no. Glitter from the decorations ends up near an air vent and in a pile of her dirty laundry. It was minor, but she flips out. While we're loading cars, She storms out screaming, "Who stole my chair?" It had just been moved to the laundry room. As soon as we leave, she goes on a Facebook rant comparing the shower to a J6 insurrection, complaining about parking, glitter, spilled lemonade which my husband cleaned, people moving items to make space, someone using her cookie sheet to warm up food. Rebecca's husband being present, she called him a piece of shit behind his back. He's the godfather of our baby and an honorably discharged vet, and the chair for myself, mom-to-be, to sit in. Other things she was mad with and stated includes decorations brought in, us bring in folding chairs, because of her not having adequate seating for people, especially the older people with disabilities, because in her words, she doesn't gaff where people are going to sit because they can stand up. She texted all three of us a long message calling us POs the next day. My husband responded to defend me since I was 7 months pregnant, which Sil then used and posted on Facebook to say, my pause Sil can't even stand up for herself. Now Mile is telling us to apologize to SIL and BIL so the holidays will be normal. I feel like we bent over backward and still got humiliated. Aita for refusing to apologize? Comments. Commenter 1. This is so utterly insane it has to be real. And you don't have to apologize because you are no longer going to be attending family events where she is present. Your husband needs to let his mother know what happened in no uncertain terms and close the door on that vile woman permanently. Commenter 2. Question to Mael. What exactly are you expecting me to apologize for? Or, are you sure you're talking to the right daughter-in-law? Said with sarcasm because I wouldn't even engage in that conversation. You don't owe anyone an apology. And your husband needs to be sticking up for you. He's that one that needs to shut this down. Commenter 3. Sure. Why don't you apologize? You've been a perfect doormat so far. Excuse the sarcasm. But come on, OP. There were so many red flags. Here. You really should have just let your actual friends host and avoid all the headaches. You sound very conflict-averse, but you need to be firmer in how you deal with your ILs, or they'll continue to walk all over you. Nantea reply. I appreciate the criticism with it because I definitely have conflict avoidance working on making my backbone stronger. It was kind of broken as a child, so it's a work in progress. Commenter 4. NTA Your husband needs to tell MIL that you are both furious and disgusted by how despicable SEL's behavior was, and that until she sincerely apologizes, she will never be around any of you again. And that MIL demanding that you apologize is completely unacceptable. Block Sil. Even if she apologizes, keep her entirely at arm's length. You won't attend anything she hosts, she doesn't get to enter your home, and you will only be civil at big gatherings. Protect your peace from her games and tantrums. As for MIL, she also needs to apologize and accept that SEL's actions have forever changed the way your family will interact from now on. If she won't accept it, you should step away from her, too. And please work on your self-respect and backbone. There's about to be a helpless infant who is solely relying on you and your husband to protect them. If you won't stand up for yourselves, at least stand up for them. Stories number 18. My neighbor's caregivers. Keep taking our parking spots and it's out of control. When we bought our townhouse, one of the big selling points was that the HOA included assigned parking. It wasn't perfect. We live in a ridiculously high cost of living suburb just outside Washington, D.C. But the idea that we'd have guaranteed spaces felt like stability in an otherwise expensive housing market. Each unit comes with 2 assigned spaces, and on top of that, I pay extra every month for a third spot because my oldest son, Ryan, just turned 17 and finally got his license. Our HOA dues are already insane, over $1,000 a month. So adding an extra paid space hurt, but it was worth it to avoid circling the block at 9 p.m. after work trying to wedge my car half a mile away. For the first 2 years here, things were fine. People mostly respected the rules. A few occasional hiccups, delivery vans idling in spaces, someone's visiting cousin parking where they shouldn't, but nothing worth writing a letter over. Until about 6 weeks ago. Our next-door neighbor, Harold, is in his late 70s. He's a quiet guy who mostly kept to himself. We'd wave in passing, maybe small talk about the weather, but never more than that. I knew he was divorced and that his daughter lived out in California. That was about it. Then suddenly his driveway and the curb in front of his house turned into what looked like a used car lot. Harold apparently got really sick. Instead of moving him into a care facility or bringing him to live with his daughter, the family decided to hire round-the-clock caregivers. On top of that, his daughter and her flashy Hollywood friends started flying in every other week. I swear, half the time it looks like a Beverly Hills car show on our little HOA street. Brand new Range Rovers, Mercedes G-Wagons, Teslas, the kind of cars that make my 2012 Honda Civic look like a golf cart. Here's the problem. Harold has 2 assigned parking spots. One was taken up by his shiny new SUV, the other by this old BMW coupe that doesn't even run. It's been sitting there for months with flat tires and dust gathering on the windshield. So, when the caregivers rotate shifts and the family comes rolling in with their fleet of luxury cars, they just start dumping them wherever they please. At first, it was just mildly annoying. I'd come home from work and find my space taken, so I'd knock on Harold's door and ask if they could move. The caregiver, usually some 20-something guy scrolling on his phone, would shuffle out, move the car with a shrug, and that'd be it. But then it became constant, like every single day. Sometimes I'd come home with groceries, and both my regular space and the extra spot I pay for would be filled. I'd end up parking on the street half a mile away, lugging bags in the dark while these people parked a $90,000 SUV in my assigned space. I tried to be polite. I really did. I spoke to one of the caregivers, a woman named Jessica, and explained the situation. She gave me an apologetic smile and said, "Oh yeah, I'll let the family know." Nothing changed. I brought it up with Harold's daughter, Danielle, one evening when she was in town. She's one of those women who looks like she stepped straight out of a reality TV show. Designer sunglasses on her head, Lululemon outfit that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, manicured nails, tapping impatiently on her phone while I spoke. She nodded, promised she'd handle it, and then went right back inside. Again, nothing changed. I started putting orange cones in my spaces whenever we left, just to save them. At first, that worked. Then one morning I came back to find my cone flattened like a pancake under the tires of a giant Escalade. That's when I realized they weren't just careless, they straight up didn't care. I wasn't the only one, frustrated. My neighbor on the other side, Cheryl, is a single mom with 2 little kids. She works late shifts as a nurse, and she came home one night at 1 a.m. to find nowhere to park. She ended up carrying both her sleeping kids from half a mile away in the rain. She left a furious note on Harold's door the next morning, but apparently that didn't move the needle either. So a few of us started emailing the property manager, Linda. We assumed she'd enforce the rules, tow the cars, find the family something. Weeks went by, and nothing happened. Every email was met with some vague response like, "We're aware of the situation and working toward a resolution." Meanwhile, the problem got worse. There were nights when I counted 7 cars outside Harold's house. 7. On a street where every inch of parking is already spoken for. The final straw came when my son Ryan pulled in after school, exhausted from practice, and found his paid-for spot taken. He called me, frustrated, saying he didn't know where to park. I told him to wait, and I walked over to Harold's house myself. I knocked until one of the caregivers opened the door. I asked whose car was in our space. The guy just shrugged and said, "I don't know, maybe one of the relatives. They're upstairs." No offer to move it. No apology. Just that blank, couldn't care less shrug. At that point, I was furious. I stormed back to my house, pulled up the HOA bylaws, and started drafting a very detailed complaint with photos of every incident. While I was writing, I ran into our groundskeeper, a guy named Tim, who happens to be dating Linda, the property manager. I vented about the whole situation, and he gave me this awkward little grin before blurting out, "Oh, well, Harold's family gave me that old BMW. So, Linda's not really going to push too hard on them." I froze. That explained everything. The broken-down BMW that had been rotting in Harold's spot for months? They'd handed it off to Tim for free, and now suddenly the property manager, who's supposed to enforce the rules fairly, was looking the other way while the rest of us got screwed. I don't even know what to do at this point. I genuinely feel bad for Harold. He's sick, and nobody wants to be the heartless neighbor yelling about parking when someone's health is failing. But his family? They're abusing the situation. They treat our little HOA lot like their personal valet service while the rest of us haul groceries half a mile. And knowing the property manager is basically compromised makes my blood boil. The cherry on top? The visitor parking they keep telling us to use is on the other side of the complex. Half a mile away, uphill, in the dark. Totally impractical, especially when I'm paying over $1,000 a month in dues, plus an extra fee for that third space. At this point, the cones aren't working, complaints aren't working, and management sure as hell isn't working. I'm one passive-aggressive note away from calling a tow truck myself, but I know that's going to escalate things into World War III with Danielle and her little entourage of luxury cars. And yet, part of me thinks, maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Update. The parking wars have officially begun. So, after I posted about Harold's caregivers and family constantly taking our parking spots, a few things happened that turned our quiet HOA community into something that honestly feels like a bad Netflix drama. I mentioned before that our property manager, Linda, was useless, and that her boyfriend Tim, our groundskeeper basically, admitted she was looking the other way because Harold's family gave him that old BMW. That little nugget of information lit a fire under me. I wasn't just annoyed anymore, I was furious. Because here I am paying over $1,000 a month in dues plus extra for a third parking space, only to have my spot taken by people who don't even live here, while the manager who's supposed to protect our interests is too busy helping her boyfriend score a free car. So I started documenting every single time one of Harold's caregivers or relatives parked in one of my 3 spots. I took a photo. I logged the date and time. I made a spreadsheet that included how long they stayed and whether I had to park elsewhere. Cheryl, my neighbor on the other side, started doing the same. Pretty soon, we had a shared Google Drive folder full of photographic evidence. The first escalation came on a Friday night. Ryan, my teenage son, came home after his shift at the grocery store and called me, frustrated, because once again, all of our spots were filled. He had nowhere to go. I walked over with him, ready to knock on Harold's door and demand they move. This time, Danielle, the Hollywood daughter, answered. She had a glass of wine in hand, and from the look of it, she'd already had a few. Ryan politely said, "Hi, excuse me, but one of your cars is in my assigned space. Can you please move it?" Danielle laughed. Actually laughed. She looked at me and said, "Oh my God, are we really doing this again? It's just parking. Don't be so territorial. My dad is sick. You can walk a little." I swear my blood pressure hit the roof. I told her, in no uncertain terms, that we pay for those spaces, and if it happens again, we'll have the cars towed. Danielle rolled her eyes, muttered something about uptight suburban people, and slammed the door in our faces. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. They knew what they were doing, and they simply didn't care. The next week, Cheryl and I attended the HOA board meeting. We came armed with our spreadsheet, photos, and receipts for the extra spot I pay for. Several other neighbors showed up too, people I didn't even realize had been dealing with the same thing. One guy, Marcus, said he'd been late to work multiple times because he had to park so far away. Another family with small kids said they felt unsafe walking from the distant lot at night. When it was our turn to speak, Linda, the property manager, suddenly looked like a deer in headlights. She started stammering about working on a solution and compassion for Harold's situation. But then Cheryl, bless her, flat out said, "We know why you're not doing anything. Your boyfriend got Harold's BMW. You're compromised." The whole room went silent. "You could have heard a pin drop." Linda's face turned red. She denied it, of course, but Tim wasn't even in the room to back her up. The rest of the board looked pissed, like they'd never heard that detail before. The board president, an older guy named Frank, finally said, "We'll need to discuss this in executive session," which is HOA code for, "This is bad, and we don't want the peasants in the room while we figure out how screwed we are." The very next day, a notice went out to all residents reminding them that towing was authorized for anyone parked in a non-assigned space without permission. That was the first time in weeks I felt like progress was being made. Of course, Harold's family did not take it well. A few nights later, Danielle came storming over to my door around 9 p.m. She was furious. She accused me of turning the whole HOA against her family and making things harder for her sick father. I calmly told her that her father wasn't the problem. It was her friends, and her caregivers who were causing the issue. She called me a heartless, bitter person and stomped off. Then, about 2 days after that, it happened. Cheryl had a caregiver's car towed. She'd come home from a long hospital shift, found her spot taken, and didn't even bother knocking. She called the tow company and stood there watching while the car got hauled off. The caregiver came out 10 minutes later, panicking and yelling at Cheryl. She didn't flinch. She just said, "Take it up with the HOA. I'm done playing games." That single tow set off an avalanche. The next morning, Danielle was screaming at Cheryl in the middle of the street, calling her every name in the book. Cheryl, who is 5 feet tall and maybe 100 pounds, just stood there with her arms crossed while Danielle ranted in her designer tracksuit. Neighbors came out to watch. It was chaos. Since then, it's been a cold war. Some of the caregivers started parking further away, but the family still tries to slip cars into our spots when they think we won't notice. Every time, I snap a photo, send it to the HOA, and let them handle it. I'm pretty sure Danielle hates me now, but honestly, I can live with that. The wildest part? I heard from Marcus, the other neighbor, that Linda might actually be on the chopping block. The board is reviewing her performance, and if they find out she really did accept that BMW as a gift, she could lose her job. I can't say I'd feel bad. I still feel bad for Harold, truly. The man looks frail, and none of this is his fault. But his daughter and her entourage treat our neighborhood like it's some hotel parking garage, and I'm done being steamrolled. I didn't think parking wars could get this dramatic, but here we are, and something tells me this fight isn't over yet. Final update. The HOA finally stepped in, and the parking wars are over mostly. I didn't expect this saga to drag on for months, but here we are. What started as me just being annoyed about losing parking spots turned into a full-blown HOA war with board meetings, screaming matches, and a whole lot of passive-aggressive drama. After my last post, the towing situation escalated. Cheryl set the tone when she had that first caregiver's car hauled off, and after that, the board actually gave us the green light to tow without warning if someone was in our assigned spots. They even posted new signs around the complex to make it crystal clear. The first week after the new rule was enforced was wild. I had not one, not two, but 3 different cars towed from my spots. Ryan got in on it too. He came home one night, found a black Range Rover in his space, and called the tow company like it was second nature. By the time the driver showed up, a caregiver came running out yelling, but the tow truck driver just shrugged and said, "Take it up with the HOA." That SUV was gone in 5 minutes flat. You'd think people would learn after 1 or 2 tows, but nope. Danielle's friends thought they were untouchable. By the end of the second week, they'd racked up 4 separate tows, and rumor has it the fees were in the thousands. At one point, I saw Danielle outside screaming into her phone about how these suburban nobodies are bleeding me dry. Can't say I didn't enjoy that just a little. The breaking point came at the next HOA board meeting. Danielle actually showed up, flanked by 2 of her friends in designer outfits, like she was walking into a courtroom on Real Housewives. She tried to argue that we were being unfair and targeting her family during a medical crisis. But Frank, the HOA president, shut her down. He had a binder full of photos, logs and tow records from me, Cheryl, and the other neighbors. Then, the bombshell. The board officially announced that Linda, our property manager, was being terminated. They'd done a quiet investigation and confirmed that yes, her boyfriend Tim had accepted Harold's old BMW as a gift, and she had failed to disclose it. That violated conflict of interest rules in her contract. Danielle lost it. She accused us of conspiring, called the board corrupt, and stormed out with her entourage. Within a week, a new property manager was in place. A no-nonsense woman named Karen Fitting, I know, but she's actually great. She wasted no time. Notices went out reminding everyone that parking rules would be strictly enforced. Caregivers had to register their vehicles and park in visitor spots only, period. Any unregistered vehicle in an assigned space would be towed immediately, no exceptions. And you know what? It worked. The flood of random luxury cars vanished almost overnight. Now, Harold's caregivers use the visitor lot like everyone else, and the rest of us finally get to park in our own damn spaces. As for Harold, this part is bittersweet. A few weeks ago, an ambulance came to the house, and I saw them wheel him out on a stretcher. I don't know the details, but I haven't seen him since. The house has been quiet, and the parade of cars has stopped. Part of me feels sad. He was never the problem, and I genuinely hope he's comfortable wherever he is now. But another part of me feels relieved. Our little street is peaceful again, and the stress of coming home and wondering where the hell I'm supposed to park is finally gone. Cheryl and I laugh, sometimes about how ridiculous the whole thing got. We joke about being parking vigilantes, armed with cones and tow truck numbers on speed dial. Ryan, for his part, is just glad he doesn't have to text me every night asking where to park. The HOA politics were a mess, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't consider selling the house at one point. But now, with Linda gone and Karen in charge, it feels like the neighborhood is back on track. It's amazing what happens when rules are actually enforced. The last time I saw Danielle, she was standing outside Harold's place yelling into her phone about how this neighborhood is full of vultures. She hasn't been back since. Maybe she realized she can't bully an entire block into letting her break the rules. So yeah, that's the end of the saga. The parking wars are officially over. We got our spots back, the HOA actually grew a backbone, and the entitled Hollywood daughter got put in her place. Moral of the story? Don't mess with suburban homeowners and their parking spaces. We will organize, we will document, and if necessary, we will tow your damn Range Rover at 2 a.m. And honestly, after everything that's happened, I almost hope they try it again. Stories number 19. My cat ended up becoming my son's personal alarm clock. I never thought I'd be one of those people who trained their cat to do something useful. In my experience, cats usually train us, but somehow over the last year, our cat has become my teenage son's unofficial alarm clock. And honestly, it might be the most effective system we've ever had. For context, I work from home, and my mornings usually start around 7:30 a.m. My son, Jake, is 17, a junior in high school, and absolutely useless when it comes to waking up on his own. He sets alarms, plural, but manages to sleep right through them. We've tried everything. Louder alarms, placing the phone across the room, the whole go-to-bed earlier speech. None of it sticks. I used to spend my first half hour of the workday popping in and out of his room, shaking him awake, making sure he didn't miss the bus. It was exhausting, especially since I'm supposed to be clocked in and on calls by 8 a.m. Enter Oliver, our cat. He's about 3 years old, a gray tabby with way too much personality for his little body. Oliver is a talker. He doesn't just meow, he announces things. It's like living with a very small, very dramatic roommate who needs everyone to know his opinions at all times. Normally, we don't let him in bedrooms because he'll spend the night yelling at shadows or trying to climb onto heads at 3 a.m. But every morning, without fail, Oliver follows me to Jake's door. The moment I open it, he struts in like he owns the place and immediately starts talking. At first, I was annoyed. Jake was annoyed too. Imagine being woken up not just by your mom but by a 10-pound furry megaphone parked on your chest. But then I noticed something. Jake actually woke up faster when Oliver was involved. He'd groan, shove his face into his pillow, but he'd also reach up to pet Oliver. And once his hands were moving, it was harder for him to drift back to sleep. Within a few minutes, Jake would be sitting up, scratching Oliver's ears, grumbling about school, but at least awake. So I started leaning into it. Now, part of my morning routine is letting Oliver do the heavy lifting. I'll walk in, Oliver on my heels, and instead of me nagging Jake awake, Oliver launches himself onto the bed like he's been cast in a Broadway show titled Good Morning, Human. He makes biscuits on Jake's blanket, screams directly into his face, and demands pets. It's chaos. But it works. Last night was when it really clicked how effective this little routine had become. Jake had a big test today and asked me to wake him up a little earlier than usual so he'd have extra time to review. Normally, that would mean me setting a reminder and standing over him like a drill sergeant. But I just told him, "Don't worry, I'll let Oliver in before I start work." This morning, I wasn't sure how it would go, Because Oliver is usually glued to me. He follows me from room to room like a shadow. I thought maybe he'd just sit in the doorway or come back out once I left. But when I opened Jake's door and whispered, "Go wake him up," Oliver didn't hesitate. He leapt straight onto the bed, stomped across Jake's chest, and immediately started kneading like he was making artisanal bread. All the while he was doing his loud, raspy morning meows that sound like someone trying to start a rusty lawnmower. Jake cracked one eye open, groaned, and tried to roll over. Oliver just followed him, kneading away, tail flicking, meowing louder. Within 60 seconds, Jake was sitting up, rubbing his face, muttering, "Okay, okay, I'm awake," while Oliver purred like a jet engine. Mission accomplished. I slipped out and went to my office, coffee in hand, without a single ounce of guilt about leaving the morning battle to our furry little drill instructor. The best part? Jake actually admitted later that it wasn't the worst way to wake up. He said it was annoying, but kind of funny, which is basically teenager code for, "I like it, but I won't say it out loud." He even gave Oliver an extra treat this afternoon, which tells me he secretly appreciates it. Now, I'm half tempted to make a TikTok about it because Oliver is basically better than any of those high-tech alarm apps. No snooze button. No ignoring it. Just 10 pounds of fur, claws, and an endless supply of meows until you get your butt out of bed. Honestly, I don't know why I didn't think of this sooner. And the funniest thing? I think Oliver knows. He struts out of Jake's room after these wake-up missions like he just saved the world. Tail high, head held proud, meowing like he deserves a medal. And honestly, he kind of does. A few weeks into this whole cat as alarm clock situation, it's safe to say that Oliver has officially leaned into his new role. Honestly, I think he likes having a job. Every morning around 7:15, like clockwork, he starts hovering near Jake's door. If I'm running behind and don't open it right away, Oliver starts meowing at me like, "Excuse me, lady, we've got a shift to cover. You're making me late." The funniest part is how much Jake has started to rely on it. At first, he rolled his eyes whenever I let Oliver in, but now it's just routine. He doesn't even bother setting his alarm anymore. He'll just mutter the night before, "Don't forget to send Oliver in." And that's it. He knows he's getting his feline wake-up call whether he likes it or not. The other morning, though, Oliver took things a little too seriously. It was Saturday, and Jake thought he'd get to sleep in. I guess no one told Oliver that weekends are different. At 7:10 a.m., Oliver barges into Jake's room, leaps onto his chest, and starts the full Broadway performance. Kneading, yelling, purring, the whole thing. Jake comes storming out 10 minutes later, hair sticking up in every direction, glaring at me like I had personally ruined his weekend. "Mom, can you tell your cat I don't have school today?" I laughed so hard I almost spit out my coffee. Like Oliver was going to take orders from me. The cat is on his own schedule now. Since then, Jake has tried locking his door on weekends. Doesn't matter. Oliver just sits outside and howls like a banshee until someone opens it. We're talking full-on opera mode. One time, Jake caved and opened the door just to shut him up, and Oliver bolted in and went right back to stomping on him like it was Tuesday morning. I swear, this cat has no chill. The thing is, I think Jake secretly likes it. He complains, but then I'll catch him later in the day letting Oliver nap on his lap or sneaking him extra treats. Last week, he even posted a Snapchat story of Oliver sitting proudly on his chest at 7 a.m. with the caption, "My furry alarm clock hates me." His friends blew up the comments with laughing emojis. One kid even told him he needed to start charging people to borrow Oliver before exams, and it's not just Jake. This little system has made my mornings so much easier. I don't have to hover or nag anymore. I just open the door, release the beast, and let nature take its course. I actually get to start my workday in peace, which feels like a small miracle. But the wildest development? Oliver has started anticipating Jake's schedule. I don't know how he knows the difference, but on weekdays, he positions himself by Jake's door like he's waiting to punch in. On weekends, he still tries, but he's a little lazier about it, almost like he's saying, "Fine, I'll do overtime if I have to." I think my favorite moment so far happened last Tuesday. Jake was dragging his feet getting ready, half-dressed, scrolling his phone instead of heading out the door. Oliver marched over, sat at his feet and just stared at him with this judgmental cat face. No meowing, no kneading, just silent disapproval. Jake sighed, put his phone down and muttered, "Okay, fine, I'm going," like he was being guilt-tripped by his own cat. I can't decide if this is the funniest thing that's ever happened to us or slightly concerning. On one hand, I've somehow outsourced my parenting duties to a 10-pound ball of fur. On the other, Jake is never late anymore. I'll take the win. At this point, Oliver has basically become a household employee. He should be getting benefits. Jake actually joked last night that we should make him a little badge that says, "Assistant to the Regional Manager, Wake Up Division." Honestly, I might do it. Final update. Well, I think it's safe to say the cat as alarm clock era has reached its peak, and possibly run its course in the most chaotic way possible. Oliver has not only perfected his wake-up technique for Jake, but he's expanded his services to anyone who dares sleep under our roof. A couple of weeks ago, Jake had a buddy from school crash on the couch after a late-night gaming session. Around 7:15 a.m., Oliver strutted into the living room, jumped straight on the poor kid's stomach, and unleashed his usual good morning concert. The poor boy shot up like he'd been electrocuted and practically screamed, "What the hell is that?" Jake thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. "Welcome to my life," he told his friend, while Oliver just sat there looking smug like mission accomplished. The real kicker came when my parents visited for the weekend. My mom adores Oliver and spoils him rotten with treats, so I think he decided to return the favor by waking her up bright and early. Except, she's not used to being jumped on by a 10-pound cat at dawn. She nearly had a heart attack. She thought someone had broken into the house and was attacking her. My dad, meanwhile, thought it was hilarious and immediately suggested we rent Oliver out to exhausted parents of teenagers. That actually gave Jake an idea. He half-jokingly made a wake-up cat flyer as a joke for his friends, with Oliver's face photoshopped onto an alarm clock. He posted it online and, of course, his friends started begging to book Oliver before finals week. One girl even offered $5 for a wake-up visit. I put a hard stop to that, but I'll admit, I laughed harder than I should have. But here's the thing. Oliver isn't just waking Jake up anymore. He's become, well, part of the morning rhythm for the whole family. Jake used to drag his feet so badly in the mornings that we were constantly late, constantly stressed. Now, I sip my coffee while Oliver does the heavy lifting. And Jake, for all his complaining, has been on time for school for the first consistent stretch in years. His grades even improved this semester because he's actually making it to his first classes. The other day, Jake told me, "I think Oliver's secretly saving my life. I'd probably still be failing history if it wasn't for him." He said it with a grin, but there was some real truth in it. That silly little furball managed to do what years of nagging couldn't. We even had a promotion ceremony for Oliver last weekend. Jake made him a cardboard badge that says Chief Wake-Up Officer, and we stuck it on his cat tree. Oliver, of course, immediately tried to eat it. Now, do I still get woken up on weekends when I'd love to sleep in? Yes. Do guests get terrorized? Absolutely, but honestly, I wouldn't trade it. There's something weirdly wholesome about knowing our cat has taken on this bizarre responsibility and takes it more seriously than most humans do their jobs. So yeah, my son's official alarm clock is now a loud, biscuit-making, judgmental tabby named Oliver. And somehow, life is a little better because of it. Stories number 20. My battle with the Pretzel kiosk that wanted a 30% tip for handing me a soda. So, this finally happened to me the other day. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind where the weather can't decide if it's late summer or early fall, and my two kids were getting restless at home. My wife had some work calls, so I figured I'd take them to the local mall to burn some energy. Malls aren't quite the thriving places they were back in the 90s, but this one still has enough shops, an arcade, and that weird little play area with giant plastic animals bolted to the floor to keep my kids entertained for a couple of hours. About halfway through our trip, my daughter said she was hungry. Not, let's sit down for real food hungry, but the kind of snack craving that only kicks in when you smell cinnamon sugar floating through the air. Sure enough, Auntie Anne's had set up this new kiosk in the middle of the mall. It wasn't even in the main food court, just a little island near a shoe store, with a glowing pretzel logo and a line of people who looked like they were just there for a quick snack. Now, for context, I like Auntie Anne's pretzels. They're salty, warm, and they remind me of high school football games when I'd grab one on the way home. But I also know they're not gourmet meals. You're getting a reheated pretzel from a warmer and maybe a soda with too much ice. No one is handcrafting anything for you on the spot at these kiosks. Still, my kids were excited, so we got in line. The setup was simple. 2 workers behind the counter, both probably late teens and early 20s, clearly just trying to get through their shifts. Behind them were racks of pretzels sitting under heat lamps, bags of cinnamon sugar, and a mini fridge full of sodas. When it was our turn, I asked for 1 regular pretzel and a large lemonade. My son didn't want anything, and my daughter was already bouncing at the idea of sharing the pretzel. Easy. Quick order. The girl at the register punched it in, and I slid my debit card into the reader. That's when the screen lit up with the tip prompt. Here's where things went off the rails. Instead of giving me the usual options, say 10%, 15%, 20%, or the magic no tip button, this screen had 3 giant buttons, 20%, 25%, and 30%. That was it. No other option. No skip tip button. Just 3 ways of saying, "You're about to give us way more than you should for handing you food from a warmer." I blinked at the screen for a second, thinking maybe I was missing something. So I asked, where's the no tip option? The cashier smiled politely, like she'd been asked this 100 times, and said, "Oh, those are the only options. It's preset in the system. Now, I don't mind tipping for service. At restaurants, delivery, haircuts, anything where someone's spending time or putting effort into making sure I have a good experience? Absolutely. But tipping at a kiosk where they literally just reach into a warmer and hand me a pretzel and a cup of lemonade? For up to 30%? That's not tipping. That's a shakedown with extra steps." I looked back at the screen. On a $5 pretzel and a $3 lemonade, 30% would have been almost $2, $50. Not a huge number, but percentage-wise it was absurd. And the way the machine was designed, it was basically daring me to either comply or make a scene. I smiled right back at the cashier and said, "There's always another option." Then I reached over, hit the big red X button on the card reader, pulled my card out, and pocketed it. My daughter looked confused. My son just kind of shrugged, and the cashier froze for a second like she didn't know what to do. After a beat, she quietly said, "Okay," and reached over to toss our order into the trash. The pretzel. The drink. Just like that. Gone. I'll admit, that stung a little. My kid's face fell when she saw the pretzel get tossed. But at the same time, I wasn't about to let myself get bullied by a touchscreen menu. The way I saw it, I was voting with my wallet. We walked away, my daughter grumbling that she wanted pretzels, me trying to explain that sometimes it's about the principle of the thing. Did she understand? Probably not. To her, Dad just made the pretzels disappear. But for me, it was a line in the sand. Here's the thing that really got me, though. I wasn't mad at the workers. Their kids making minimum wage and dealing with whatever system their company installed. I was mad at the company or whoever designed that software to manipulate customers into tipping where tipping shouldn't even be expected. They didn't even give me a chance to say no gracefully. It was all or nothing, and that's not right. Later that night, I told my wife what happened. She just shook her head and said, "You really walked away over a pretzel?" "Not just a pretzel," I corrected. "It was the principle." She rolled her eyes, but I could see she got it. And honestly, I think anyone who's ever had one of those tip screens shoved in their face when all you're doing is grabbing takeout or buying a coffee understands exactly why I did it. So yeah, I walked away pretzel-less. My daughter was disappointed. My son couldn't have cared less, and my wife laughed at me. But deep down, I know I stood my ground. I refused to be electronically bullied into tipping 30% for someone to hand me a soda from a cooler. Next time, I'll just bring snacks from home. So I honestly didn't expect so many people to relate to my little pretzel standoff, but I figured I'd update because the story didn't quite end there. The following weekend, we found ourselves back at the mall. My daughter had been on me all week about the pretzel incident, and my wife finally said, "For the love of God, just buy the child a pretzel and move on." Fair enough. I wasn't planning on rehashing the whole ordeal, but I could tell this was one of those things my daughter was never going to let me live down. So we head to the food court this time instead of the little kiosk, because I wanted to avoid a repeat of what happened. The food court Auntie Anne's is the main one and actually has workers making the pretzels fresh behind the counter. I figured maybe, just maybe, the tipping screen situation would be different there. Spoiler, it wasn't. This time, the screen came up with the same three choices: 20%, 25%, 30%, but at least there was a tiny custom tip button buried at the bottom. You had to squint to see it, but it was there. I clicked that, hit 0, and proceeded like a normal human. The girl at the register didn't even blink. We got our pretzels. The kids were happy and I thought that was the end of it. But then, as we're sitting down to eat, the manager of the kiosk, not the food court one, the kiosk one where I had my showdown, actually walks by our table. He recognizes me. No joke. He points at me and says, "You're the guy who walked out last week, right?" I kind of froze mid-bite. My wife, of course, burst out laughing and said, "Oh no, not this again." I admitted, "Yeah, that was me." He goes on to tell me that a couple of other customers had done the same thing recently and even left bad reviews online, specifically mentioning the lack of a no-tip option. Apparently corporate had been testing different settings on the machines at various locations, and ours had gotten the high-pressure version. He said he hated it too because he had to deal with annoyed customers every day, and he was just as frustrated. Then he laughed and said, "I didn't think anyone would actually walk away from food over it, though. That was a first." My daughter piped up with, "Yeah, and he threw away my pretzel," like she was reliving a trauma. The manager actually apologized to her, said he'd have given her a free pretzel if he'd been there that day. So now I'm apparently the pretzel guy at the mall. My wife has been milking it, joking every time we pass by. "Careful, honey. Don't get into another showdown with Big Pretzel." Here's the kicker. Last night, one of my neighbors stopped me while I was getting the mail and said, "Hey, didn't I see you on that local Facebook group about the Auntie Anne's tip thing?" Turns out someone who had been behind me in line that day posted about it in our town's community group. Basically a play-by-play of me hitting the red X and walking away. People were debating in the comments whether I was a hero for standing up to ridiculous tipping culture or a villain for punishing the workers. So yeah, I didn't just walk away from a pretzel. I unintentionally started a minor suburban culture war about tipping screens. And before anyone asks, yes, my daughter finally got her pretzel. In fact, the manager gave us an extra one on the house after our little encounter. So she's forgiven me. My son still doesn't care. And my wife is still rolling her eyes. But you know what? I stand by it. There's always another option. Okay, final update on the pretzel tipping saga, because at this point I can't believe how far this thing spiraled. After my last post, I figured it would all die down. My daughter was happy she finally got her pretzel. My wife was happy I stopped ranting about percentages, and I thought I could go back to just being a normal mall dad. Nope. Apparently, I underestimated how fast small-town gossip and the internet can travel. Remember how I said someone had posted about me in the local Facebook community group? Well, that post got traction, like way more than I expected. By the next week, people were arguing about tipping culture, corporate greed, and whether kiosks should even have tip screens. Half the comments were, "Good for that guy for standing up to it," and the other half were, "It's not the worker's fault, just tip a buck and move on." My neighbor sent me screenshots of threads where I was literally being referred to as the pretzel protester. Then it got funnier. Somebody in town apparently has a sense of humor, because one morning when I went to walk the dog, there was a sticky note on my mailbox that said, "Always another option, Pretzel Guy. 2024. Like I was suddenly running for office on an anti-tipping platform. My wife nearly cried laughing when I showed her. But here's the part that shocked me. Auntie Anne's corporate actually did respond. I don't know if it was because of all the customer complaints or just timing, but about 2 weeks later, I went back to the same kiosk, this time solo, because I wasn't about to drag my kids into round 3. When I ordered, the card reader popped up with normal tip options, 10%, 15%, 20%, and a clear no tip button. No pressure, no weird preset percentages. The cashier noticed me squinting at the screen and said, "Yeah, they finally updated it." People were mad. I asked if it was because of customer pushback, and she shrugged and said, "All I know is corporate sent us new settings." So maybe, just maybe, my little red X rebellion was part of a bigger wave. Of course, my wife isn't letting me take credit. She keeps reminding me that I'm not some consumer rights crusader. I'm just the idiot who walked away from an $8 order and broke our daughter's heart for a day. But deep down, I know I fought the good fight. For what it's worth, life has gone back to normal. I still get recognized occasionally when we're at the mall. Once a teenager pointed and said, "Hey, it's that guy," which made me feel like a zoo exhibit. But mostly, it's blown over. My daughter now proudly tells people, "My dad's famous for not tipping on pretzels," which is not exactly the legacy I was aiming for. But hey, it's something. So yeah, that's the end of it. I didn't topple tipping culture, but I did get my family free pretzels, my kid a funny story for school, and myself a weird new nickname around town. And honestly, I'll take it. From now on, though, I'm packing granola bars when we go to the mall. Stories number 21. Co-worker in HR, 30s F. With me, 24F. She told an employee not affiliated with HR about my confidential sexual harassment case. I had an extremely rough time at work back in July 2017 at work. I was working in a very unpleasant, hostile work environment with a co-worker, Tom, who would not stop making inappropriate and vulgar advances towards me. I took the right steps, told him explicitly to leave me alone, stopped talking to him outside of work, and elevated the situation to HR and documented everything. During this time, I made it clear so many times to HR that I wished to keep everything confidential, and they promised me again and again that they would. There were 2 HR employees helping me with this issue, the head of HR, James, and the person I refer to in my title is Jessica. She is the one I confided in initially, and she was my main point of contact with dealing with the sexual harassment. This past week, I found out that she has a very close friendship with another co-worker who works in our labs. We are a STEM company. He has absolutely no affiliation with HR, and therefore had no business knowing about my case. I don't wish to disclose how I found out this information, but please believe me when I say I am 100% sure she has told him about my sexual harassment. I don't know how many details she told him. I just know she told him I filed the case. I am livid, as she decided to be open about my identity in the situation but chose to conceal the identity of the Tom, the co-worker who was sexually harassing me. I am also embarrassed. It already took me so much mental and emotional energy to bring it up with HR and make an official claim against Tom. Jessica is actually leaving the company for personal reasons at the end of the month. Is there anything I should do? Should I confront her? Should I bring it up with the head of HR? I am at a loss for words, and I feel extremely violated. Any words of advice are greatly appreciated. Note: I didn't know where to stick this in with my post, so I'm going to stick it at the end. I should make it clear that Jessica does have a history of not keeping information confidential. I'll list several cases. 1. A co-worker of mine. Terry has told me that she confided in Jessica about a problem Terry was having with her manager. Terry did not wish to escalate it to the head of HR, and Jessica knew this, but decided to go ahead and blow everything out in the open and not only inform head of HR, but Terry's manager as well. 2. I had confided in Jessica it was a personal matter. Lesson learned: I shouldn't have done this, that my mom had just gotten cancer right around the time I was dealing with Tom. The very next day, the head of our HR, James, came to me and talked to me about my mom. I was uncomfortable to say the least, but I didn't feel it was warranted to complain about. Important edit. I just now realized that I didn't give enough context to my situation. I understand that if James were an absolutely ethical HR guy, there is no doubt in my mind that the right move would be to report to him. However, my company can be very toxic, and a lot of personal boundaries are crossed at work. I know James and Jessica are very close friends. I am also uncomfortable with the fact that when Terry tried to resign, James flat out denied her resignation and got the CEO involved to basically manipulate her into staying. WTH should I do? TLDR. Coworker in HR does not keep confidential information to herself. What can I do? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. It's terrible your confidence was betrayed in this way. Sadly, HR isn't really there to help you. Their first duty is to protect the company. That does mean upholding their legal duty to prevent workplace harassment, which may often align with your interests, but won't always. So I guess my only advice is make sure you have your own independent counsel, if you don't already. I wish I remembered the details of this, but I think I've heard of a service that all U.S. lawyers are required to participate in that offers low-cost, initial legal consultation. But I'm sure others know more. About specific resources that would be useful to you, anyone? Reply: I agree with you 100%. That HR's only responsibility is to protect the company, which is why this situation isn't as cut and dry. Technically, what Jessica did was wrong, but my management has been known to cross professional boundaries. That, and we are a relatively small company, so there's extra kindling to the fire. Commenter 2. HR professional for a large, well-known, Canadian company here. It would absolutely be appropriate to escalate this to the head of HR. HR professionals have a duty to maintain confidentiality, especially when it comes to complaints and internal investigations. At my company, we are even pretty conservative about sharing information within HR, let alone with other departments or employees. If Jessica did share this confidential information, you may want to consider filing a complaint against her. Just as I am sure you were given the confidentiality spiel in any investigation meetings, she is expected to maintain confidentiality as well. You may not want to go this route though, as she is already quitting, and there may not be anything to accomplish down this path. Long story short, you are 100% in the right for feeling betrayed by this person. In her role, she has a duty surrounding confidentiality, and I can't think of a situation in which someone not at all connected to the investigation should be privy to this information. 1. Tip: if you are going to escalate this to the head of HR, decide ahead of time what your expectations are. What needs to happen here to restore your feeling of comfort and safety in the workplace? He should ask you that, so you should be prepared. Good luck. Reply: yeah, that's the kind of conversation I had with HR during the sexual harassment. The most obvious answer at the time was that Tom and I don't work on projects anymore, or better yet, fired. But now, with all of the new things I've been hearing about my company, I just don't know what actions I could suggest to HR to make me feel like I'm in a safer environment. Jessica is universally adored at my company, coupled with the fact that management has known to be pretty shady. There's no one I can trust. Commenter 3. If that is the case, perhaps you should start looking for new opportunities. No one should work somewhere where they don't feel safe in the workplace. If you don't feel management, HR will support you, it may not be the right place for you. My one piece of advice is at least give HR or management a chance to help you. Most people genuinely care, and sometimes, I can only speak from my experience, management is made to be a villain a bit. Most people are good and want to do the right thing. If it doesn't work, continue to look for another opportunity, and when you find that great opportunity, do an exit interview and cite this incident and the mishandling as your reason for leaving. Update: I'm always reading updates, and I'm always in awe at how much support people are willing to give, and I'm so glad to have been on the receiving end of that support, so thank you. When I initially made the post, I was way too scared to actually leave my company, but reading all of the advice and generally shocked, angry responses really made me evaluate my situation. It's been about 5 or so months since my last post, and I always love a good update, so here goes. About 3 months or so after I had found out HR was leaking details about my sexual harassment, a coworker completely unrelated to my team work came up to me and had told me that my manager was telling her he was unhappy with my work performance. This was not in any sort of professional setting, purpose meeting. They were having a conversation as friend to friend. I had known he was dissatisfied with my performance for some time, as we had talked about it, but what really angered me was, again, that toxic culture where employees share information to other employees who are not privy to that information. I was especially disgusted because my manager had given me the most support during my sexual harassment. That was definitely my last straw, and that's when I started looking to get the hell out of Dodge. During my job search, I started realizing how underpaid and unappreciated my work was. There was no room for growth. As of today, I've signed a new offer letter with a 45% salary increase from my current pay, great benefits, good title, and work that actually interests me with opportunities for actual mentorship. Of course, I won't burn any bridges with my current company. I'm going to tie up my work, hand off what I need to, and make it as smooth and professional of an exit as possible. I want to thank you guys again for all the advice you have given me. It took a while for me to come around, but I finally did it. And I'm excited to move upward and onward. I feel oddly sad, guilty even. It almost feels like leaving an abusive relationship. I felt guilty for wanting to leaving for so long, so I put up with toxic coworkers, a hostile environment, and shitty pay for an extra 5 months longer than I had to. I feel free now, but at the same time I feel a little melancholy. Thank you all again. TLDR, I left the company. Fuck yeah. Final comments. Commenter 1. Once you've started your new job, you should absolutely post about this company on Glassdoor. Make everything as factual as possible. Don't add any speculation or personal feelings or name any names. Just, I left the company because HR did not handle my sexual harassment claim in a professional and confidential manner. Don't say toxic, or use Jessica's name. Just that. Reply. About 10% of the employees have left in just 6 months. I think I'd be safe leaving a somewhat vague but nonetheless bad review of the company. Commenter 2. Congratulations. And as an added suggestion, if you haven't already had an exit interview, if they're even going to offer one, or if the interview is with HR, and so pretty useless for what I'm about to suggest, maybe a letter to the top brass owner, CEO, board, etc., detailing all of the information from your original post and the follow-up here to explain in explicit detail why you're leaving. That's what exit interviews are for, supposedly, and if that's not going to be helpful, then a letter after you've left and gotten settled in new job could help someone in the future. Reply. I was thinking about what I want to say during my exit interview. I'm still scared to leave an honest account of what happened. I'm worried it won't do much, and it'll just make me look bitter. Commenter 3. Write it like you did here. Clinical, professional, as objective as possible, but brutal in clarity and honesty, with as much supporting evidence as you've got. It's one of the reasons I honestly recommend writing it and mailing it to top brass after you're gone. Commenter 4. Good for you. Did you already hand in your resignation? I'm curious if they will try and manipulate you to stay. Reply. I was wondering that myself. No, I'm handing in my 2-week notice on Monday. I'll let you know what shenanigans they try to pull on me.